What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Mount Rushmore edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's been a while since we've done a Mount Rushmore, over a year actually, which is far too long. So we are very excited to get back into one of our staples here in Smark Moment. If you don't know who we are, of course, I am Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
We still do these.
Yes, we do. And so does Robert Felice.
Yes, and just like the actual Mount Rushmore, I am the unfinished gravel at the bottom. What I am.
Well, the fourth out of the Mount Rushmore when it comes to opinions about these topics and the way that we are addressing the podcast in general. You know, if we got the three of us, we have you all in the comments. So make sure that you let us know what you think about our thoughts. Make sure that you give us your lists and anything else that you want to chat about. Of course, if you are listening to this on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and leave those comments below. If you are elsewhere, though, then join the Discord service, and we've got that up over on this link that you can see up on your screen right now. If you are, of course, listening to this on the audio-only platforms, then you can't see that on your screen, but that's okay, because you can just go to smarkatmoment.com, and you can see a little graphic on the right-hand sidebar. That is the same exact link over there. Of course, if you want to chat it up on Facebook or Twitter, or just post something on the page on smarkatmoment.com that this is up on or something like that, plenty of different ways for you to tell us what you think about these topics and anything else. So it's not the hot tags. I'm clicking on the wrong graphic there. The Mount Rushmore, we haven't done one in a while. The last one we did was Mount Rushmore of the Anoa'i family dynasty on March of 2024. So it's something that we're a little out of practice for, but it is pretty simple overall. It's not like something that we forget how this works. The Mount Rushmore concept is we pick four of something for the list, and we don't just keep it the most generic that we can possibly do, where it's, you ask somebody like, who's your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling? And then they end up saying four names, and then that's the end of the discussion. We did that originally, and we've done a lot of different topics about this. You can find a list of all those on smarkatmoment.com or on the wiki page. We have done 28 separate sections of lists, and each one of those has typically between 2 and 4 Mount Rushmores within them. For instance, we've done the Mount Rushmore of King of the Ring, where we did the best and we did the worst. And we did the Mount Rushmore of Undertaker feuds, and the Mount Rushmore of NXT, where we did a lot of different lists, everything from the master list to the rookies to the tag teams in the undisputed DIY era. Like, I don't know why we necessarily broke it down like that. Wednesday Night Wars list and all that. So we typically expand this beyond that. And this is a topic that we had a blank week going on for here. Next week is going to be an insane amount of pay-per-view stuff. And we're kind of smack in the middle of, we just talked about Backlash. Money in the Bank isn't here yet. The Worlds Collide thing isn't here yet. Saturday Night's Main Event next week, and Double or Nothing is next week, and NXT Battlegrounds next week. What do? It's too early to do Money in the Bank. It's too early to do something for the draft because they haven't announced anything yet. So I tossed it out there, any suggestions and stuff. And Frankie, a longtime listener, longtime supporter, and somebody who writes for smarkatmoment.com as well, suggested the Mount Rushmore of heels and faces. And it's such a baseline topic that I'm surprised we never got around to it. And that was my original thing, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure we did that already. Apparently we didn't. We've talked about heels and faces.
Bread and butter, so it's your fault.
Yeah, I'm sure that the heel and face turn list is going to, potentially turn out more for this podcast than any others. Not as much of a crossover as I would think with a lot of the other ones. I don't know why, but, that's been a long mystery of the Smark Moment fan base. So it's a simple concept. We pick four, but we debate about these things. And if we are stuck where we are not all unanimous about something, then we do the 2 versus 1 rule. If, say, Rob and Callum are saying that, I don't know, Hulk Hogan should be on a list more than what I was thinking or something, and I'm thinking Ricky Steamboat, then, it's 2-1 vote, and then Hogan goes in there. That's kind of the basic gist of it. if you've listened to these podcasts before, you know how it works. If this is brand new, thank you for joining us. So heels and faces, I guess we could probably end up talking about tweeners at some point. There are so many different types of these, and we aren't necessarily going to keep it as like we need to do one of each archetype, but the archetypes are a good way to start. And we could have separate little Mount Rushmores of these different archetypes too. That could be anything from the ones that I already had a little bit prepped ahead of time. I'm sure that Rob and Callum are going to think of some that I completely forgot about and all. But I think a good starting point for us to get into this, because we could bounce all around here. Not only is it different types of heels, but different types of baby faces. That's a lot to kind of digest. I think a good way to start is to just go with the textbook. If you think of a heel and if you think of a baby face, is there one central person that you tend to think of for either of them? If somebody just says, like, explain a heel to me, does somebody pop in your mind?
I've never been asked that question. Mostly because most people that I interact with don't care about wrestling. But I mean, if I'm thinking of like who kind of typifies a heel, probably the first name that comes to mind is Roddy Piper. I think that his I think he was someone that was willing to push the envelope, but realised that he needed to be made the fool of a lot of the time. So he's kind of one of those people that could remain dangerous through his words and actions, but then also be willing to be pantsed when the opportunity like presented itself. So you kind of want to see that mixture of, you know, Weasley, chicken shit heel characteristics, but then also someone that, you know, in the right circumstances could actually be threatening and dangerous. And I think Piper covered both those bases at his peak as a heel.
Piper is somebody that is, I don't know if I would necessarily go full blown master list Mount Rushmore, but then again, that's just because I'm, you know, at this point, there's so many names that are flying around in my brain. But Piper is definitely one of the go-to ones in my mind too. And he fits some of those different archetypes, and then he kind of is almost an animal of himself, because people try to replicate Piper specifically as opposed to being like the type of character that Piper was.
I was going to say he is an archetype in his own way. You know, the smaller guy, big mouth, heel, who, you know, is cocky. He's got the talk show thing that everyone's tried to bite off of. But more than Piper, when I think of a heel, and especially in that era, I think Flair.
Flair's definitely another one of the major ones. He is, again, somebody that people replicate a lot. He is a totally different type of heel than Piper sometimes, depending on what they want to do. Because obviously, like, Flair is doing the, I've got so much money and I'm such a ladies' man and I'm this prolific champion type, and Piper's more the scrappy, like, crass, kind of rough around the edges type of heel. They're both going to poke you in the eye, but one's going to do it and back away. The other is going to do it and keep fighting you. And those two are similar than a lot of other types of heels, and it just goes to show the differences between those two, because people wouldn't say that they're the same character at all. And yet they're on a similar wavelength, and they're on a completely different wavelength from like a monster heel. Because another thing that a lot of people could think of is, if they're thinking of a heel, they think of somebody like a Yokozuna or an Andre the Giant, or even to a certain extent like a Brock Lesnar or something, like this brutal beast of a character, which of course Flair and Piper certainly have never been in their careers. You got psychopath characters, you've got corporate stooges, you've got the snobby rich character. You've got multiple different cult leaders over the years, which is funny. That's a regular thing too. You've got the male and female equivalents of these two, where it's like, say like a Tyler Breeze is like, it's Prince Pretty and, well, aren't I so good looking? And then you get women who are like, I'm the cocky, mean girl, the pretty girl, like Zeta Steel in Evolve. I don't know why she's the first person that I thought of, but like, yeah,
Tyler Breeze, Zeta Steel, what's going on with
out
you?
of all, I don't know. My brain's barely working.
Yeah, of all those
days.
people for that archetype, rather than go with, I don't know, Rick Rude and
Right.
Shawn Michaels,
Maurice, and
yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, those two pop in my brain. They're not going to go on the Mount Rushmore, but there you go. They got a discussion in there. And that's just even heels, because babyfaces. That's a whole nother. Then you get into like white meat babyfaces, and you get into the polar opposites of these. And then it might be better for us to kind of stick to just heels, just babyfaces, and then not bounce around as much. But I guess we might as well just stick to heels since we started with that one.
If you're talking about like a monster type, you mentioned some names like Andre, you mentioned Yoko. I think the go-to for that, for me at least, is Vader. Like, that is a great example of a monster heel who, made a lot of money in a time where, especially the promotion he was in, WCW, wasn't making a lot of money, beating up Sting, beating up Ron Simmons, made a babyface out of Cactus Jack because he's that much of a monster. Vader is probably the archetype I think of when I think of a monster heel, and he's definitely somebody who I would consider for Mount Rushmore if we were divvying it up in terms of like one representative of each archetype. I would definitely consider Vader on that list.
Let's kind of zoom in or zoom out. I don't know, whatever. Zoom in, I guess it would be, on the unstoppable monster, big giant beast type of characters. Because I consider them slightly different from like the psychopath character, which I think we'll get into in a little bit with like Randy Orton types. And you mentioned Cactus Jack. Like, I don't consider Cactus Jack a monster character. I think he's more the sadistic type of thing. And Vader is definitely more of the monster.
Well, there's one crossover, and that would be Sid.
Yeah. Well, it's also got the cool tweener kind of thing going on. He's also got the, he's Sid Justice for some reason. He's vicious and he's a psycho, but he's also, he believes in justice. He's a very complex man and the ruler of the world. Vader's definitely a go-to option for like that monster character though. And that's with, me being a WWF guy more so than a WCW guy. So I missed out on the biggest run of him being a complete unstoppable monster. Of course, I've seen some of it over the years, the feuds with like Sting and Ric Flair and everything, but like he was a big fixture of that for a little while. And, their go-to monster in a lot of ways. And there's terrible ones too. Like, Giant Gonzalez is not going to be on a Mount Rushmore of unstoppable monsters because he sucked.
I would toss Mount Rushmore of stoppable monsters.
Stoppable, at least by count out, was it, or no, disqualification?
He eventually got pinned by Taker.
So I wouldn't put him in there. What are some other monsters? Would you guys constitute Brock as a monster? Or
absolutely. 2012 to 2023? Absolutely. Even like the 02, the original run for Lesnar, absolutely unstoppable monster.
I mean, I definitely would class him as monster. My issue would be in the term heel for Brock Lesnar. Would be the bigger issue for me. Because I don't think that. Yeah, there have been times when Lesnar has been a heel, and gets booed, and they've positioned babyfaces against him, but I don't think. Well, at least until very recently, with present stuff that's come out about him, but I don't think people have ever really hated Brock Lesnar. Like, I think people for more often than not, when it actually just comes to his ring work, they just actually like to see him throw whoever it is about. Like, he's, I think the most that he was ever a actual more classic heel was back in 2003, 2004, when he was more of a jock type character. Whereas the current stuff he does is he just turns up and throws people around, and that's kind of that appeals to a certain demographic of fan.
He's definitely in that range where, like, even as this character that is beating people up and, like, you know, elbowing them in the head, and it's like going overboard, it's still like, okay, but we want to see that type of person because he's a badass.
Yeah, people like badasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I was going to more like one of the top monster heels of all time, my mind would immediately go to Bruiser Brody.
Yeah, Bruiser Brody is one of those guys that, like, he pops up a lot on different discussions like this, and I never have the ability to really dive into him because I've never really watched much of his career, but I've always heard so much good about it. So, like, I defer to you guys when it comes to Bruiser Brody, but I can totally see why you bring him up.
Absolutely, I would say he's deserving of being on that list, and in some ways, you know, an archetype in his own right. You got a lot of the Brody Lee, Luke Harper stuff was trying to tap into that Bruiser Brody energy. Anytime a foreigner goes to Japan and gets the opportunity to kind of make it seem like they're going to swing on the audience, a lot of that's them paying tribute to Brody. I wish I would have gotten to see him in real time. Obviously, he passed before I was born, but I've always enjoyed the stuff I saw of him in that time.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the kind of archetypes of the more hardcore, brawling style of professional wrestling that you're more accustomed to today with the likes of, you know, your deathmatch type wrestling. But yeah, super protective of his character, so he kind of carried over the heel stuff into his real life whenever he was in public. So he continued at a time when kayfabe was still strong to be a heel both in and out of the ring. Obviously, he had his runs with Babyface as well, because in the territories you always just switch between one or the other. But I think that he definitely kind of is a strong candidate for this monster, unhinged, wild man type heel.
And a different type of monster than a Brock Lesnar or a Vader for being that sort of, like, the difference between where I was saying, like, I don't consider Cactus Jack an unstoppable monster, but he has some Cactus Jack vibes, but he has the unstoppable monster vibes to go along with it. Would you guys consider Abdul the Butcher in that, or is he more of the psychopath?
No, he's definitely a monster heel.
Yeah.
It's just pure size, and like him and Brody are pretty much like very cut from the same cloth. I mean, Abdullah also falls into the classic, you know, foreigner heel gimmick.
Foreign heel. He's in the center of that Venn diagram that's like psychopath, foreign heel, unstoppable monster.
I mentioned earlier, Yokozuna is one of those unstoppable, just like big dude types. Like, he's not a monster in the sense of, like, when you look at him, he doesn't have, you know, he's not chewing on worms and stuff like a boogeyman would be. Although boogeyman, oddly, mostly babyface, if not entirely babyface. I don't know if he ever was a heel, which is very strange. But, you know, the Yokozuna types are also in here. That's Yokozuna, that's the Giant, that's Andre the Giant. Part of the discussion, but I don't think anybody's going to vote for him, like a King Kong Bundy, or even like an Earthquake, or any of those. Like, guy is just huge. Zeus is even technically an unstoppable monster. It's not going to make our Mount Rushmore. Nobody's going to pick Zeus over the names that we just talked about. But, like, you don't have to be necessarily the absolute biggest guy to be the unstoppable monster. Zeus was big, but, like, you know, that was his gimmick, was like, you know, He's another big dude for Hogan to fight.
And his name was Tiny.
Yeah, totally different. Yokozuna, though, I think is a good representation of like that, you know, how do you even knock him down type. And between like, I kind of equate Yoko, Giant, Big Show, that kind, Andre the Giant. They're all sort of cut from the same cloth a little bit. Obviously different styles in some ways and stuff, you know, but I would go with like only one of those necessarily on the monster list.
We haven't said Kane yet, and I think Kane needs to be.
Kane is definitely a crossover on a couple different ones. He could be on that psychopath list, but Unstoppable Monster for sure. For that matter, Undertaker.
Yeah, Zombie Undertaker. Like, I'm talking first year and a half of Taker is legitimately just a Hulk Hogan era zombie character. Andre's an interesting one because I don't think I'd put him on for heels just because of like full career scope.
He was
but
a
I think
babyface.
he's definitely the best of the fee fi fo fum archetype for a giant heel. But I think if you're talking Andre, you can definitely talk about, you know, I'm sure we'll probably break this down in another section, but at some point we're going to be talking about Bobby Heenan.
Oh yeah, definitely got to talk about like the manager heel types. I'm gonna put a pin in the Andre thing for later, but just mention Gentle Giant is totally a babyface archetype, and I think Andre could end up being on that. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other real candidates for Unstoppable Monsters than the ones that we have. Any other guys you can think of? We're not even thinking about the women's division. Awesome Kong.
Oh yeah, Awesome Kong, yeah.
And
I was thinking about like you got your Bull Nakanos and stuff, but
Bull Nakano and Aja Kong. Can't think of any other right now off the top of my head when it comes to that either. Like at least none that are like worthwhile. Like, you know, obviously some people are bigger than some others, but
yeah, I think we can move on.
I think we might have even let me see. So we had on the list before. It's a good thing I have this list up now. For the best big women / super heavyweights on the women's division, we had Aja Kong, Awesome Kong, Dewdrop, because she was Dewdrop at the time. And then we didn't really settle on a fourth one, but it was like Nia Jax, Nyla Rose, Bertha Faye, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's not quite the same to just be full blown super heavyweight equals monster, because that's not, you know, necessarily the case. But looking at some of the big men and super heavyweights that we have on our list, like we went with a couple others that are on here. Mark Henry. I don't know. Unstoppable Monster? Hall of Pain? Maybe.
Yeah, for a certain era, he was definitely an unstoppable monster.
We also had Umaga was another one that we didn't bring up yet.
Very good unstoppable monster for like 12 months.
I don't think I would necessarily pick either of those two for like the main Mount Rushmore of this list, but
no, but they deserve the mention.
So just out of this group that we have, and we have a group of like 14 names right now, kind of whittle us down a little bit here and there. What would be your picks for the 4 unstoppable monsters?
Vader. Probably Vader, Kane, Brody, and I don't know, maybe Awesome Kong, maybe Andre. I just feel weird about Andre as a heel, but maybe.
What about you, Callum?
I'd probably go Yoko over Awesome Kong. I just don't think Awesome Kong was was notable enough just in general to do it. I think you're just putting Awesome Kong on there to be like, we should probably put a woman on the list rather than actually thinking that she's has a bigger impact than Yokozuna does.
See, but then I don't know if I'd go Yoko, because Yoko, it's a good era, but it's a very small, like it's a short run.
Well, my kind of other ones, like, I wouldn't put Andre because he was mostly babyface throughout his career. Same with the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Henry and Umaga made enough of a splash to be in it. I don't really. I mean, I'd probably either go Aja Kong over Awesome Kong anyway, because I think Aja Kong has a longer legacy than Awesome Kong does.
I can live with that.
So if we were to go with one of the monster heel women, then Aja Kong's definitely ahead of Awesome Kong in the pecking order.
What about would you do like Vader, Kane, Brody, any of the other ones? Well, because right now,
I mean, I'm fine with Vader, Kane, and Brody. Yeah, so it's just the other ones.
If Brock didn't get the reactions Brock gets, I'd put him up there, because like that run, his run as the actual like final boss in the 2010s was a legendary run, but he also just got such positive reactions.
Well, I just think that it's like he was crippled by the fact that there were just like really no over baby faces during that run. Well, no ones that they were willing to push anyway. You were dealing with like the worst baby face Roman Reigns, and like Cena was kind of out of the picture for the most part.
So I'm down for Vader, Kane, Brody. That fourth one, we got Awesome Kong, Aja Kong, Yokozuna. I probably still would put Brock in there as my fourth, more than anybody else. So we got 4 names that are a potential for the fourth. If I didn't pick Brock and I was picking between the 2 Kongs and Yoko, I think I'd probably lean a little bit more towards Awesome Kong. Funny enough.
It's largely because you don't know much of Aja Kong's career.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with Callum about Aja Kong over Awesome Kong. And so if we were gonna go that way, I'd probably go Aja Kong. But
okay, that's 2-1 over me. Makes sense too. You guys know more about her career than I do.
It's not in the case like really knowing as much more about her career. It's just that I know that there is a much longer career than Awesome Kong's career was. Like, she's still wrestling and Awesome Kong isn't. And she started before Awesome Kong started wrestling, so
it's crazy, right?
Damn, she's still wrestling. That's so interesting when you hear stuff like that.
So if we were going to do the 4 of them, Vader, Kane, Bruce Brody, Aja Kong?
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Right now. Yeah.
And then maybe a separate, a B tier of that being, I guess, maybe Awesome Kong would be on there, maybe not. But Yoko would be on a B tier for that. And then any other 3 that you guys would put into a B tier?
Only can't be here all night.
Yeah, we are going to get
so many categories to go
That's
through.
true.
A B tier of monster heel.
I'm forgetting
monster heels.
I'm forgetting that we have so many different ones. All right, well, we'll keep all those in mind. We'll do a breakdown of that deeper in the future if we want to go like super crazy. He's not on the list. The psychopaths, I have down both Kane and Randy Orton. I think that both of those definitely would go on there. Mankind, I think, is another major option for the psychopath character.
Yeah, I'd say Jake Roberts, probably.
Jake Roberts is another good option for that.
As well. And Brian Pillman as well.
Brian Pillman is a fun one for that. There's a little bit of crossover with that and the cult leader thing, but I kind of separate them a little bit.
Well, that's why I haven't mentioned Raven for psychopath, because he is cult leader.
Exactly.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, can't think of any better list than Orton, Kane, Mankind, Roberts, Pillman. Anybody that we're forgetting on that?
Well, I mean, Kevin Sullivan's, he's kind of in that middle of that Venn
He's cult leader,
diagram.
really,
Cult
isn't he?
leader.
Kevin Sullivan, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
he's more
you
cult
know,
leader to me.
I'd put I could say like I mean it's a more recent. I don't think it's as impactful as the ones we have on the list. But Tommaso Ciampa, like his heel run in NXT, that was
that was a good psychopath run.
that was an obsessive kind of character. Maybe not necessarily psychopath, but like single focused on being champion and not and not letting anything else get in the way of that. But maybe that is a bit too recent, and too low level for being in NXT and stuff.
I like the Sicilian psychopath, but I wouldn't put him above the others.
I mean, not mentioned Sid either for the psychopath.
Yeah. I mean, I make more defense for Sid than a lot of people do, but I wouldn't put him above there.
No.
And that's a group of 5. Pillman would probably be the one that I would take out if it was to take one of them out, but
well, I mean, actually, there's also a question for this one because I'm just looking at the other list of like archetypes we've got. Like, where does Terry Funk fit into this?
He's a babyface.
Terry Funk, because no, he was really more of a heel than a babyface.
It depends on when. It depends on what era you're asking.
I'm talking about the era where he was like, main event, but at a kind of appropriate age. Because later stage, Terry Funk is definitely more of a babyface, like ECW type things. But like heel Terry Funk, which is like beating the shit out of Dusty Rhodes and people like that. Like, I don't know where he fits into really psychopath, but he's
maybe like a separate category of like sadist.
We're just an ass kick. Well, yeah, that's where you could fit a lot of like
Abdullah
like
the Butcher
wrestlers. Yeah, Abdullah the Butcher would fit into that. Brody would fit into that. Moxley would fit into that probably.
Cactus Jack.
Yeah, people that were just there to inflict violence on people.
I mean, I'm down for a group like that. Abdullah the Butcher, Terry Funk, Cactus Jack, John Moxley. What was the other name that you mentioned?
Brody would also fit into that.
Brody. Again, we don't have to necessarily fully make the Mount Rushmores for each one of these. We can kind of just keep that as like, it's a group of 5. Yeah,
Minoru Suzuki would fit into that as well.
That is true, yes.
Minoru Suzuki.
I'm sure there's plenty of others in Japan. I'm not going to name.
Yeah, I mean, like that, and especially when it comes to...
We know Suzuki. We know Suzuki because of this stuff in the US as well. So,
those cult leaders, I've got down Bray Wyatt. I've got down. We mentioned Raven. We mentioned Kevin Sullivan. I don't know if I'd put CM Punk on there. I think there's probably another option over than Punk.
Yeah, I think at that stage, because his only real... Well, yeah, he had the Straight Edge Society thing, but it's not like
he had
his best work.
That was a good run, though. Like, that does count for something, and you can mention it, just like how we mentioned Hall of Pain. But, like, I don't know if it's going to make the list.
Any other cult leader ones?
Gotta go with, like, Waylon Mercy as one of that, as, like, the kind of archetype for Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, he never had the cult, but he was a rambling cult leader.
It was based on like the Cape Fear character, so he was kind of who Bray kind of adapted a lot of his character from.
What about Undertaker even? In Ministry
of Darkness, yeah.
That is true, yeah.
I'd put Undertaker over CM Punk on that front. I'm asking every once in a while, I'm asking ChatGPT to kind of like refresh my memory and give me just a general sense. And I was like top 10 cult leader type heels. And the 6th one that pops up is Right to Censor.
I guess Stevie Richards then would be part.
Yeah,
right. He was part of Raven's heel group as well. So he was one of the ones that followed Raven. So
we got the spooky characters.
There's a world where we're talking about Karrion Kross on that list.
Oh, man, if it would just work out. On the spooky heels, we got Undertaker. We got
Lee.
For cult leader. If they didn't make the Dark Order,
yeah.
So
I mean that would have been what it was if he didn't pass. Like that was where it was going.
Undertaker and Kane are the two I have down under spooky. There's of course been plenty others, but like Abyss.
I was going to say Abyss, but Abyss was mainly a babyface for most of his run.
True.
As well as same with Undertaker as well. And Undertaker was he was a heel at certain points. I mean, maybe you decide to bypass it and do the person that was mainly the instigator of Abyss as a heel, which is James Mitchell. Obviously, he's a manager rather than a wrestler, but like he is
heel character.
And all of his the vast majority of his people that he managed were these heelish, these monster-ish heels like Abyss, obviously, and then you have like your Judas Messias and Relic, which is killer spelled backwards.
What?
That's so crazy.
What's Crimson spelled backwards?
Cobra.
Mankind can be thrown in there too for the spooky ones.
Bray Wyatt's probably spooky. I mean,
Bray Wyatt's a spooky one. Which again, some crossovers with the cult stuff because that's just spooky cult. There you go, like that kind of thing. We didn't dive into the foreign category. We mentioned Abdullah the Butcher though.
Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik is one.
Nikita Koloff. Ivan Koloff.
Volkov.
And Volkov.
I mean, Yokozuna, even though he technically wasn't, but still.
Yeah. I mean, he played the foreign fanatic kind of character.
His character. Would you class Sergeant Slaughter under that?
I would, but I also
that's like
wouldn't.
A subgenre of the subgenre when you get into like the foreign sympathizers, like Slaughter, Lord Tensai.
Oh, Tensai! I pulled out Tyler Breeze. You pulled out Tensai. Muhammad Hassan.
Yeah.
Again, American, but like
that's what I mean. Like it's that subgenre of like the sympathizers.
Rusev for a little bit there.
Kamala.
Yeah, he was.
Kamala, is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. He's probably a good one for Monsters as well.
Man, ChatGPT is it's like, hey, what about Ludwig Borga? We're gonna pick
probably
him.
Because you typed in foreign fanatics, you dork.
No, I typed in top 10 foreign heels.
I've actually got an argument for that as well. Like Stan Hansen. Because he did most of his work in Japan, where he's
foreign for them
over in Japan. Yeah, so
I like that.
And of course, you need an opponent
to be
the foreign fanatic against. So.
What other heels do we have? We have the Weasel. Now that is
I wonder who.
There's a lot of Weasel heels. Bobby the Brain Heenan.
I was gonna say you can't say Weasel and then not say Heenan. Heyman.
Heyman is definitely one of those.
The managers really fall into this. Like Jimmy Hart's a Weasel.
If you look at wrestlers that fit into the Weasel, I'd say Miz fits into that category.
Miz is a good Weasel. That's a weird sentence.
He's arrogant, cocky as well, but he also fits into the Weasel stuff.
Miz is a crossover between that and the arrogant heel, for sure.
Santino, who's also crossed into the comic relief.
Which Ric Flair is a part of that kind of group too. Christian to a certain extent.
Oh, Christian, absolutely. Christian was great at being the cowardly.
That's his best work.
I'd say Jericho fits into that as well.
Jericho's a crossover of a lot of different types. Yeah. Most of those, I think, are the ones that kind of come into my brain. Because if we're talking about Rushmore, we're talking about like best of these, not just like there's a million Weasel heels, but like these are kind of the ones that I go to.
MJF?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Absolutely.
He's someone who directly avoids matches where he can do it.
If you watch Dynamite most recently, the way he cowers away from Lashley, there's no way you can say anything else. Like he's a Weasel.
I'm sure Shivani's called him that multiple times in the
Most likely.
over commentary. So
we've got the rich guy. So
the rich guy.
Ted DiBiase, JBL,
Flair.
Ric Flair goes in there. I'm not going to put him on the list, but Alberto Del Rio.
He goes in the toilet.
Yeah. What are some rich
Hunter, Triple H.
Yeah, I mean that's
would you constitute him for that?
That was doing the whole like Ric Flair, Harley Race type mock-off thing.
And you're thinking 2003. I'm literally just the thought process was blue blood snob. He's Hunter.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's more of a fitting choice for that.
This was tossing out EC3, Robert Roode, MJF. I mean,
I'd say Okada's original run in New Japan, because his whole gimmick is that he's the Rainmaker.
That is true. That is all money.
Say Sasha. I know she fits more into the arrogant, cocky one, but it's
it's
all based around the money and
Mercedes Monet.
I mean, her name is Banks and Monet, so of course it's the money side.
We haven't said him, and he's obviously one of the top heels of all time. Vince
is rich, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vince is the whole thing about being the rich boss, and
I'd say actually, arguably, Shane actually fits more into that category as well when he was a heel, because he was like the spoiled, nepotistic rich kid.
We love Nepo babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shane
and Stephanie obviously as well. Yeah.
Shane could definitely be put in that group.
Steph as well could fit into that, obviously, for the same reasons.
Basically, what I'm doing here for anybody that's wondering why we're bouncing around so much and so quickly is because I did realize that when you pointed out how long we were going to be, I'm going to have us toss a bunch of these and then we'll narrow it down, I think, further.
We can narrow down Mount Rushmore for them. I just didn't want us to go through B's and C tiers for for the micro categories we're doing.
Yeah,
we always do 20 of them anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the mean girl category of that bully heel type. So Lay Cool is in the mix there. Beautiful people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which of course, that's a group act. You wouldn't just be okay, well, we're gonna pick 3 of the beautiful people and then Michelle McCool.
That's the only time you're ever gonna hear those 2 acts mentioned immediately when discussing Mount Rushmore.
Let's see.
I mean, Mean Girls is very
a lot of them.
Sasha was a Mean Girl heel, and so was Charlotte at a certain point as well. Alexa Bliss would fit into that.
Oh yeah, she was a really, really good one of those when she was doing the goddess character and all.
Mm-hmm.
Trish,
I missed that, by the way.
Trish when she was a heel, she fits into that.
Technically, kind of Stephanie.
Stephanie, absolutely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
$1 Billion Princess Stephanie, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. It's always makes me want to go back to the Unstoppable Monsters because we didn't even mention China for that as well. But China was mostly a babyface.
China's a good answer.
But China was mostly a babyface anyway, so I don't think it really fits into that.
Mandy Rose for the mean girl types.
Toxic Attraction, absolutely.
Might as well just put them as Toxic Attraction because it was better as a group. Tiffany Stratton.
Yeah,
I don't know why she stays right now. She doesn't.
I mean, she also fits into the rich one, Daddy's princess type thing.
Yeah, I like that character. Chelsea Green, by the way, for the Weasel heels, is really good.
Definitely.
Oh, very good. Top female Weasel heel of all time.
And she's even gone on to be I want to be the female Miz and stuff. And it's yeah, you're doing a damn good job at that. She's great.
You're probably doing better than Miz.
Would you classify separate Mean Girls versus the I'm so attractive type of female heel? Because they mostly kind of cross over.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're being mean because of their looks, but like, there are ones that, I mean, you could just go with just like, we should just categorize it. It's not just a female thing; it's a male
Pretty
and female
people.
thing. Because that's where you fit. Yeah, the people that are obsessed with their looks. So that's where you put your narcissist. Yeah, that's where you put your Rick Rudes. Yeah, your
Rick Rude, Lex Luger,
Carmella,
Shawn Michaels.
Rick Rude, Lex Luger, Carmella,
Cody Rhodes,
Shawn Michaels. Yeah, the Dashing Cody Rhodes. I mean, I mentioned Maurice earlier. Maurice just made a whole gimmick of just like, I'm just hot, and that's it.
I'm the sexiest of the sexy.
Tyler Breeze.
That was pretty, he was pretty.
Ziggler for a little bit had that going on, but I wouldn't put him in a Mount Rushmore thing.
Nah.
See if this comes up with any others that I mean, there's old school names, you know, for some reason. The very first one it pops up is gorgeous Jimmy Garvin.
Jimmy Garvin, yeah, as well.
Yeah, I'm not putting Jimmy Garvin over Gorgeous George.
Yeah.
I don't think Gorgeous George was really like a pretty one. He was like effeminate, and that was the part of it. I mean, that's like a Goldust type heel.
I mean, but he definitely was considered to be like a pretty type. For that,
you can almost like fit them into a category of like the misunderstood heel.
There's Adrian Adonis.
Yeah, there's a whole androgyny. Not much more we can make.
Velveteen Dream.
I'm not putting him on any fucking Rushmore.
But another
he's
androgynous.
He's on some list.
Yeah,
he is on a list.
That's better.
I think they call it a register these days, but still.
This brings up Jesse the Body Ventura on here.
Superstar Billy Graham, absolutely for that.
Yeah, he's pretty.
As well.
He's pretty ugly. Pretty deadly.
Yeah, I mean, yes, boy. Like,
yeah, like they're great at that. The other two archetypes that I've got down for heels are the corporate stooge and the flat out just arrogant, cocky type. The arrogant, cocky type.
More like comedy type, but I think of corporate stooge like Patterson Briscoe, J&J Security.
Well, I'm also thinking like, you know, there's like Corporate Kane, there's Triple H. As far as being like, you know, Vince McMahon is of course like the leader of that.
Eric Bischoff.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Bischoff, I'll add him down to there.
It's Russo.
Seth Rollins for the Authority.
Yeah. Jeff Jarrett, I'd say, for the TNA stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And WCW as well, part of that as well.
Brendan Cutler, kind of, when they're doing the EVP stuff.
Well, Young Bucks actually could fit into that kind of thing as well.
Nakazawa was a fun stooge. He got paid.
I don't know if I would classify JBL in there. Because he's more the rich guy, and then he's just like, of course, the corporate people are like aligned with the rich guys, because that's how the world works.
Oh, well, William Regal.
Oh, he's a great corporate stooge.
William Regal's definitely somebody that
he's a great weasel. He's a great comedic relief.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
he should have let a Colt.
We haven't done all of these ones yet, but one thing you have noticed, we have not put Roddy Piper in any single one of these categories.
No, that's what's weird.
We did. No,
but that's because Roddy Piper can do everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, he's the first person we mentioned.
And we also didn't mention in any category Edge.
Yeah, well, Edge in his time has been a weasel. He's been like a pretty person type. He's been like a sadist and psychopath at certain points in his time as well.
If I was gonna nail him for a specific category, it'd be psychopath. That kind of like, he could also do arrogant, cocky though, but really the psychopath, the opportunistic, smarmy heel, I'd say that's where Edge fits. By the way, we didn't talk about it because we were kind of glossing over things. But for an entire generation, '09 Randy Orton specifically is like the heelest of the heel that you're ever gonna get.
God, you're like those Twitter bots that always put out stuff like, "Oh, Samoa Joe cooked the entire roster in."
Well, that's what I mean, though. Like,
2009 Randy Orton was a menace. That kind
like
of
for those people, the Randy Orton was a menace. Like, you know what I mean? Because there were probably like 4 or 5.
Like, as like we've learnt things over the time, I think like him kicking the shit out of Vince McMahon actually makes him a hero, really, in many people's eyes.
Retrospect.
that is true.
With somebody we forgot to mention on the Weasel that I would easily put into the list, Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh yeah,
like top Weasel heel, fucking amazing character. The arrogant cocky one, again, it kind of goes all over the place. That's like Ric Flair's like the blueprint, I think, for arrogant cocky.
A blueprint.
Shawn Michaels was easily the top heel in that kind of category for a little while.
Yeah, I'd say. I guess it depends on a lot of ones. MJF fits into that one naturally.
Sasha Banks.
You could put the Miz in there.
Adam Cole.
Charlotte Flair.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I'd say Jericho.
Yeah, Jericho.
Yeah, I think that's where he fits best.
Yeah, The Rock definitely fits into that one as well.
Rock.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, The Rock.
Yeah.
He's also a corporate stooge. Like,
to a degree, yeah.
To a degree. I mean, he just is like.
He's not like under like the rich guy thing in a lot of ways, but then now with the final boss thing, he's been in that like, okay, he's also going to flex that.
Oh yeah, and he was corporate rock when he turned on, like when he joined up with Vince McMahon and turned on the people. So
it's not quite the same with the foreign fanatics thing, but like Nation of Domination taps into that kind of like outsider gang mentality of like just pure ethnic hatred for some fucking reason that pro wrestling has, you know? Hey, these people are different from you, even if they're perfectly fine, but boo them because they're not like you. You know?
Yeah, I think like arrogant cocky. I guess you'd put Hollywood Hogan and the NWO into that kind of overall category.
Yeah, NWO as like in general
collective, yeah.
Now,
look at
yeah, the NWO reset is now. I'm on my screen.
I'd maybe like another category that could be considered, which is the heels that think they're the good guy.
Oh,
I don't know how you do it.
Self-righteous.
Sorry.
Self-righteous.
Oh yeah, self-righteous heels. Yeah,
that's a good.
Because that's where I immediately say Kurt Angle is a self-righteous heel.
Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan, Bailey.
Oh, Daniel Bryan, 2019. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, the eco title and all, like Bailey, role model type.
Yeah. Should I think about ones? Bob Backlund.
Bob Backlund, absolutely.
Bob Backlund's a good one.
Yeah.
I always forget about Bob Backlund.
Oh, Bret Hart. Bret Hart during the.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart in '97, absolutely.
That's where CM Punk comes into with the British Society. Yeah. Seth Rollins right now is playing that type of a character.
Oh yeah, where he thinks
I don't know if
right.
You know, we'll see how that holds up over time.
I mean, he did that with the Greater Good thing as well.
I mean, and I would also say that at his best, when the angle was starting, Roman to Jay was very self-righteous and like, I'm just trying to lift up our family.
Would you class Roman as a cult leader then?
It kind of was. Like, I would argue definitely Roman could be seen as a cult leader.
I could see that. I mean, even like just Tribal Chief Roman Reigns in general, like one of those top heels.
Smarter than you.
The I'm smarter than you types of heels, like Damian Sandow.
Yeah. Lanny Poffo.
Leaping Lanny Poffo, not quite the same, but genius, yeah.
Nick Bockwinkel fits into that, I think. Like he was always like the super
Bobby the
suave,
Brain.
articulate
That's
type guy.
another Bobby Heenan crossover.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dean Douglas, because you can't say Dean Douglas anywhere else on any other list.
Oh, Jericho with the I'm the best of the world and what I do, that kind of
he was in there.
Kind of
Would you
straight-laced
throw
heel.
Mr. Perfect in there for the smarter than you?
Oh, he's definitely
like the better than you. I guess you could argue like smarter than you, better than you type of thing.
He's in that like cocky type of range too.
Yeah.
I mean, you call yourself Mr. Perfect. Dolph Ziggler is in that arrogant, cocky side of things, but not on the smarter than you. Because he's never been like, I'm so smart. It's always just been like, I'm better. I mean, the cult leader thing, it's like, there's like the cult leader, then there's like gang leader. And it's like kind of the same. Like we were talking about, like Roman is part of like a gang more so than like a cult, I would think.
Yeah, because when I think gang, I just think WF 97, and then you're getting into really weird territory.
Yeah, the gang warfare.
Yeah. Would Triple H fit into the smarter than you one as well? Because his name is the Cerebral
The
Assassin.
game and Cerebral Assassin. Yeah.
And Seth Rollins is the architect, so maybe he fits into that part of it as well.
The visionary.
Yeah, exactly. So his gimmicks are built around that
Oh,
stuff.
here's a good one for Weasel. Andy Kaufman.
Ah, that's a great one. We have so much to work with on our.
Because there've been so many heels over the years.
Yeah, and like
heels are more interesting.
Yeah.
So,
I mentioned things like Don Callis could fit into a lot of these ones.
He's in the smarter than you one.
Cocky Weasel type thing. Got like Jay White when he was like doing the Switchblade stuff. He fits into a lot of those ones. I mentioned other members like the Four Horsemen and stuff like that. There's just so many, and that's because we're just trying to encapsulate all wrestling history into. I'm gonna have to try and name 4 people to be like the greatest heels of all time. So
we could narrow it down as we could do the heels. We could do if we decide that there's like enough women heels, and we could do like heel faction. Yeah, we can kind of play around with that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of it, just for my own notes, heel factions, like I would think like four horsemen that you were talking about would be potentially in there. Evolution would potentially be in there. Bloodline, corporation / authority, because it's basically the same thing.
Dungeon of Doom.
Dungeon of Doom.
What about heels?
They take priority over the Ministry, I think.
Yeah. I'd say
original NWO, I feel comfortable saying, but then
NWO, yeah. Definitely.
Oh, NWO, 100%. Why does it keep changing to now? NWO.
Undisputed Era. Going for a more modern one.
Easily the top heel faction of NXT of all time. I'd say Dark State.
Bullet Club.
Bullet Club's basically another NWO, yeah. Bullet Club of New Japan.
Yeah, I'd go with you'd go with the Elite as well, potentially. I know they're kind of like flop between 2 of them, so maybe they're not like strictly heel ones, but
Death Riders. Just because you said Elite.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to go there.
Main Event Mafia.
Aces and eights, yeah.
Yeah, that's the last time TNA was good. The Main Event Mafia, okay. Like,
Aces and eights, yeah. Let's just let's focus on that one.
What about sex?
I'm married.
Sports Entertainment Extreme. Sports Entertainment Extreme. With Vince Russo and all the TNA stuff.
If we were to narrow down the heel factions to a Mount Rushmore out of this group, we have like
Horsemen, yeah, definitely.
Horsemen, NWO, probably Bloodline. As crazy as that is to think about, because it's so recent.
I'd probably put Bloodline in there.
and I'd probably go Bullet Club because I think they've been around for so long in the modern era,
And they have done so much for wrestling.
Yeah, and they've gone from New Japan to like Ring of Honor to AEW. Like they're even like referenced in WWE as well. So it's like I'd say they have more longevity than the other ones that we.
They run wrestling in a lot of ways.
I could see those being the four. I could also see an argument for saying that Evolution is B tier to Four Horsemen, and that Bullet Club is B tier to NWO, and then throwing instead of the Bullet Club, throwing Corporation Authority in there as the fourth.
Yeah, but
my argument against that would be that the Authority sucked.
Yeah, my argument would also be bad television. Like,
yeah.
We got kind of an A and a B tier, sort of. If we
There's
were going to go,
ones we haven't mentioned yet, so.
Let's see, top 20 heel factions.
Like the main event Mafia.
Let's see if we are.
It will definitely mention 8s and 8s in that thing, or what was the group with like Hogan and Bischoff and Jeff Hardy and that lot?
Immortal.
It does have Immortal on this. So according to ChatGPT, which of course, it's good in some ways, bad in some other ways. It's got NWO, Four Horsemen, Bloodline, Evolution, Corporation, Bullet Club, original and elite eras, Ministry of Darkness, The Shield. They were too cool though. Undisputed Era, Inner Circle. Yeah, right. Immortal, The Dangerous Alliance, Pinnacle. The Nexus. Nexus was fun. House of Black, Beautiful People, Right to Censor, Wyatt Family, Heenan Family. That spans too much though. Team Canada.
My argument with Heenan Family is that's a hodgepodge of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wyatt Family is a good example of probably that cult idea.
Yeah, Heenan was just like a group of people that were managed by Heenan. They weren't really a faction, to be fair.
They were a faction in the sense of what's the group now that hang out together, and then you swap them in and out. It's the same as Don Callis Family.
Yeah.
Beautiful People, though, definitely like a top heel faction when it comes to women and stuff. Heel women in general.
Heel women. Stephanie McMahon's the biggest heel woman of all time, I'd say. Or at least in light of a modern sense.
I'd put Charlotte Flair in there. I'd put Sasha Banks in there.
Vicky Guerrero is one of the best characters. I'd say, thinking about ones, I'd say Trish is a difficult one because she was very good as a babyface and very good as a heel. So, not sure.
This keeps up. We're going to be able to put Becky Hogan on the list.
Sherry Martel?
Yeah.
Very good heel.
What other, like, Lita now? Sable now?
I'd say Aja Kong fits into this one as well because, like, she was like the big monster heel in Japan for the women's side of things. Put Aja Kong in there as well.
Ronda Rousey, I wouldn't put her in there. I do think that for a certain era, Bliss is in the range, but I wouldn't go Mount Rushmore for her, like, overall of all time.
Way cool. Like, they're definitely in the range for that butterfly era, but not Mount Rushmore again.
This has Tessa Blanchard on there. It's got Shayna Baszler. It has Nia Jax on there.
Like Psycho Mickey James, but again, that's probably a bit too short-lived. The Bull Nakano probably goes into there as well. Oh, Victoria.
That's a good one.
Victoria was always good. So we'll... I don't know how we're gonna narrow some of these down. We're gonna speed run it.
Look, when you get to the actual 4 overall, it gets very easy.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
So you mean like 4 overall heels?
Yeah.
Who would you say are the 4? Because I have a list of like 12 that I'm kind of bouncing around between now.
Flair, Vince, Piper, insert fourth.
I mean, I'd say those three are very high up on the list for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why. Like, the reason we do it like this is because we would be done in 10 minutes. It's very like you can just speedrun it if you want to.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list and I'm like, all right, I'm taking a few out of, like, I wouldn't ultimately go Rick Rude. I wouldn't ultimately go, you know, Mankind. I wouldn't
You
pick
might
Vader ultimately.
Roman.
But like, just in general, there's like, there's Hollywood Hogan, there's Triple H, there's Ted DiBiase, there's Brock Lesnar, there's Edge, Jericho, Heyman, Lawler, The Rock, Roman, Flair, Piper, Vince, Iron Sheik, Randy Orton is a good option for that. Kane.
So I'm gonna make a pitch mid podcast here and suggest, what about the week after next, when we're done with all the pay-per-view stuff? That's when we come back to this and do the baby faces. Because that's another 2-hour discussion in itself.
I think it depends. So we can see how quickly we can get this one done. We might be able to knock in the baby faces as well. We might decide, oh, I'm pretty tapped out. We're talking about like 200 people in this one, but we'll see. I mean,
we could do it this way. We could either do that. We stick to just the heels on this front, and then we do baby faces on another day, or we could do the breakdown like this, and then eventually do a thing where we actually fully break it down. Not as big of a fan of that. Now I'm saying that out loud.
I mean, I don't really mind talking about like the top level babyface stuff. Like, to go through the same thing we've kind of done with this one. And then if we decide as a dark cast later on the line, if we want to really nail down like the psychopath sadists, all this other stuff.
Kind of do like we settle on the actual.
Rather do the big ones now, like do the best like heel women, the best heel factions, and the best overall heels, and then do the same thing for the baby faces. Just and go through like a nice round discussion of all of the baby faces, like we're done with the heels, but then in a later thing come back and say, okay, now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of all these ones. And
now we're gonna like narrow down the subcategories.
Yeah. It's for the people. As I say, we'll do the top line stuff here because, like, as I say, that might be what most people are interested in, and then the people that are the real like obsessives, like we are, will go into. we'll pay the money for the dark cast, and we'll stump up, and then they'll show up to see who we really think is the best corporate stooge of all time.
That's true.
That's a good idea. We could do
is for the sickos. We don't get enough credit for that. Sparkle moment is for the sickos.
We'll do it that way.
Got some free behind the scenes footage there of us like deciding what we're going to do a podcast midway through doing a podcast.
Right. Yeah. So we've got our big list of a bunch of lists that we'll break down in further detail, either as a Darkcast or as like a follow up part 2 kind of a thing. But we'll narrow it down to like discussion wise with all that stuff, because I don't think we're going to talk as much about the baby faces as the heels. But so Rob's major heel list, the master list for heels in his mind, Flair, Piper, Vince, and then a question mark for the fourth. I'm looking through the list of all the different people that we've created at this point to try to see if there's any more that I would put as like, I wouldn't put, as much as I love Mr. Perfect, like I wouldn't put Mr. Perfect above a lot of these other ones. And big fan of obviously Shawn Michaels. But to me, I don't think Shawn Michaels is the top heel of all time. And even when it comes to, Kurt Angles and Bret Hart and these other characters and wrestlers that are fucking fantastic, I don't think of them immediately when I think of heels. So I mostly kind of narrowed it down to my group of fucking 18, which is a lot to narrow down to a top 4. But what about you, Calvin? Do you have a top 4 or even like a top 8?
Well, I mean, those 3 would definitely be like the highest on there, I'd say, or among the highest on there. I think that they're just too prominent and did so much across the careers to be like, yeah, these are definitive heels. Just trying to think of the fourth one's difficult because there are so many options, but I think the fourth is just so wide ranging. Like DiBiase does make a lot of sense but I'm wondering whether like it's just too like WWE centric. Same with Triple H, really. I mean, I'm trying to think of like someone that like Brody would work there. You could look at like Bobby Heenan and
I was to say there's a strong argument for Heenan.
yeah. If you look at like from a more modern day one, then you'd probably be looking at the likes of Randy Orton and Edge and like even MJF if you wanted to go with that one, but I think he's probably just too soon. Like that could be something that like maybe in 10 years' time we look back and think, oh, that he might be the best of all time now. I'd say there's just a lot of options for the fourth one, but I think those three kind of stand alone at the top.
If you think about like business done for a company, you can say NWO. If you think about business done for a company, you can say Roman Reigns. That's kind of where my brain's at right now between, NWO.
I certainly wouldn't go Roman, I don't think. I think it's too recent. I also think that he's just in an era of time when you don't really need to, where your company, in particular for WWE, isn't run by who their stars are, they're run by just the company name. I'm saying that he's a bad heel, he definitely would be on like a C or D tier type top heel list, maybe. But yeah, I don't think that he's like one of the best heels of all time.
I'm like, while these guys are talking, I'm trying to break down my my list of 19 people into 5 different Mount Rushmore tiers to try to be like, what's the quickest and easiest way for me to break that down?
I mean, we could, if we wanted to really get into the minutia, we could talk about a guy like Billy Graham for being an archetype for so many going forward. We could.
I mean, yeah, if you go in that far back, you could look at like Gorgeous George being, one of the kind of like real original heels.
Absolutely, you look at if you're going that far back, we can actually talk about an Ivan Koloff beating Bruno in the Garden, Stan Hansen breaking Bruno's neck.
Yeah, like Larry Zbyszko's and those types of.
Larry Zbyszko turning on Bruno.
Of course, those are a lot of like ones that I don't tap into as much because it's older and I don't like the older stuff as much.
Well, yeah, but you like certain names you're looking for if you're looking for like the very like classic old school, like you would like, I guess, really the archetype heels in terms of who would set the pace for everyone else. You're looking at, let's say, Gorgeous George, Fred Blassie, The Sheik, Killer Kowalski, Billy Graham, Fuji.
We haven't talked about this person, but Fritz von Erich as a Nazi and as a father. Let's see.
Dick Murdoch, Buddy Rogers.
I'd like to dive deeper into Japan.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like which one. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the heels in Japan were like Gaijin heels, like your Stan Hansons, your Bruiser Brodies. They were like big heels in Japan. Vader, of course.
Vader's absolutely a good archetype heel.
So I'm kind of still stuck.
But there's loads of them, yeah.
I do think that all 3 of us are going to have Ric Flair and Vince McMahon in our A-list Mount Rushmore. I'm not sold on Piper being one of the 4, 100%.
Do you just want to bring up one more name? No one has mentioned this person. He might come up in the babyface topic. But Hangman Page did burn down someone's house. That's a pretty shitty thing to do, but he's nowhere on this heel list.
It seems like they're okay with it now.
Yeah, he's a good guy for it.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Leaves his plans. He burned down a house. What are you gonna do?
So I'm not beholden to this 100%, but I kind of broke down my 20 as 5 different tiers. And again, like if I thought about it for another 30 seconds, I might end up switching some of it around. But I kind of think I'd put Heenan in there to represent the Weasel character, because it's a big type of heel. Like, to me, like, Flair is the cocky, arrogant, and also kind of the rich one representative. So, like, maybe not DiBiase, even though DiBiase, I think, is top tier. I think Flair covers that, and I think Vince also covers that as well. So that covers, like, rich, corporate, arrogant, cocky, also kind of the pretty people thing with Flair, because it was the whole, like, look at my watch and look at my fucking hair and all this other stuff. Vince, totally different kind of guy. I think Heenan I have down on there for the Weasel and the manager type. It's very tough to say between Heenan and Heyman. You can merge those together. It could be Bobby Heyman. And I guess maybe I would actually put maybe Randy Orton actually would be my other fourth one to represent, like, the psychopath kind of character.
I'm kind of struggling with the idea, because even my list is very WWE centric, and I know that there's so much wrestling out there.
Well, Ric Flair's not. Ric Flair's not.
That's
WWE.
true. I am thinking NWA when I'm thinking Ric Flair.
I'd argue Piper's, like, he obviously his most famous work is in WWE, but he also did a lot of the stuff on NWA and in Canada and stuff like that as well. So, I mean, I could definitely go with, like, Heenan, because, like, AWA stuff as well as WWE side of things, and I think that as a heel manager and just as a heel character, I think he was. I mean, kind of like the mindset I'm taking of is, like, was the person that I'm picking on this at one point in time, you could argue the most reviled person in pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, like, you can definitely say that about Flair, you can definitely say that about Man, I think you can more certainly say that about Heenan. I don't think you could say that about Randy Orton.
I think we're too...
Yeah, that's kind of tough.
I think we're too old to be the people who say that about Randy Orton. Because I know when he was having his run, I'm 16, Callum's 17. We're already thinking beyond, like, boo, I just hate this guy because he's beating up John Cena and John Cena's dad.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, I imagine there were some young people that think that he is, like, the greatest heel that they ever saw. But I just think that, I don't know, maybe it's just, like, a jaded nature of things, but that whole it used to be better type mentality. But it's a case of, I just don't think that Randy Orton as a heel is as impactful or as, like, was truly despised in the same way that a lot of other people were. He's definitely got closest. I think him and Triple H are probably the people that got closest in the more modern era to doing that.
I could see an argument here for, I'm going to go against my own thing, even on this. I could see an argument to say Randy Orton for 2000s onward fits that mold, but if you go back further enough, then you actually bring back the Roddy Piper argument, because Piper was way more sadistic, quote unquote, than a lot of other heels were at that time. Like, he was doing stuff that people were like, oh my god, I can't believe that he did that. What do you mean he smashed a coconut over that? What a fucking vile being.
Yeah,
and I'd be okay with our top four being Flair, McMahon, Heenan, and Piper.
Oh, I'd definitely be fine with that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
And then
I think, like, if you go too much with, like, not to say that Randy Orton didn't, like, would step up to the fight, but I think if you go too far into the Randy Orton side of things, he might be a bit too Weasley. And if you're going to have Flair, McMahon, and Heenan, who all have kind of some Weasley tendencies, you need someone who's just going to be there and just like, okay, I'm just going to fuck you up. I'm gonna cheat, but I'm going to fuck you up at the same time. And I think Piper fits into that category.
Would you guys? Maybe we'll wait to do a B tier. And we'll do that with the other group. Since we'll keep the podcast flowing along here. That B tier coming in the future, everybody. But that would be our Mount Rushmore of heels. Then would be Flair, McMahon, Piper, and Heenan, which is a damn good list. And then that shifts us over to Babyfaces. Tweeners will probably wait and do in the supplemental list too, because Tweener is like another whole thing, even though obviously Stone Cold Steve Austin and like some other people are probably going to be on there. I have less categories for the face archetypes. Might be able to think of more along the way like we did, but the only ones that I've got down are the All-American Hero, the Underdog, the Rebel Anti-Hero, which I guess is kind of the tweener side of things, the Fighting Champion, the White Meat Babyface, who's just like smile and shake the hands of the kids and all that, the Comic Relief Babyface, I mentioned the Gentle Giant.
So when I think babyface, I think even what we know today aside, Hulk Hogan is the archetype of a wrestling babyface. It sucks knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
But he is.
Which is like it's surprising because, like, I'd say, and again, you go for it with a different lens now that we know what a dick he is in real life, but he was actually quite a dick as a wrestler as well. Like, he would cheat. I mean, he would like stomp over people with other opportunities and stuff like that.
Only when it was those dastardly foreigners, Callum.
Or Sid.
Or Sid, yes. Like I'd say he's definitely like a top contention one, but
yeah, he's somebody that you have to bring up immediately. That's why I did it, just to like, okay, we've mentioned right off the bat Hogan is somebody you have to at least have in the discussion.
So Hogan I would put down as under the All-American category, and I'd also put him down under the White Meat Babyface for the portion where he was like, say your prayers, take your vitamins.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. That's your very traditional hero type character.
Another White Meat Babyface, John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
I'd potentially put him down under the All-American one too, but yeah, we can come back around to that.
I'm gonna also go ahead, go.
No, you go first.
Ricky Steamboat has to be on this list.
White
yes,
Meat.
Definitely White Meat. That's one of the ones I was definitely going to mention. Probably Undertaker one as well. Probably.
I was so tempted to type down Tito Santana.
You need help.
For many different reasons.
Yeah. I'd say another White Meat Babyface is Sting.
Sting.
Absolutely.
The man called Sting.
Man called Sting.
And going into Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi is the New Japan equivalent of John Cena.
I would also throw in there Misawa.
Yeah, I'd say Misawa definitely as well.
Huge baby.
We've got actually I'm gonna put here Flashy and just put Randy Savage down. Under the potential White Meat ones, we've got Bret Hart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Dusty Rhodes.
Absolutely.
We've got Bruno Sammartino.
Absolutely.
And he could go under the American one too, since it was the whole
he's
like
Italian, but okay.
He's the the fighting Italian for New York, going up against the Iron Sheik types and stuff like that.
I'd say
wow, ChatGPT has some pretty weird ideas for the White Meat Babyface ones. One of the top ones that it has down is Ted DiBiase.
What?
Yeah, what?
Okay.
I mean, maybe he was at certain points in his
Ted DiBiase for his time in Mid-South. Maybe?
It says 1989 to 1991.
Okay, no.
Yeah. not how that works. Oh, look at that. It's got Kofi Kingston on this list for Kofi Mania.
He's an underdog one.
I wouldn't do that necessarily.
He's not going to go on the list anyway. But still.
But shout out to Kofi. Kofi underrated as all hell. Great.
Brian is the underdog babyface.
Brian is. I was just typing Daniel Bryan down as underdog.
Would you say White Meat Bailey as the hugger gimmick?
Oh yeah, that's a really good one. Not as many babyface women that really stand out because if they're like a white meat babyface woman, they're pretty bland characters like Kelly.
Yeah.
Where it's just
the
like
one that stood out.
Yeah. Bailey is the one.
Becky,
not white meat one. I don't think. I think maybe if she fits the Rebel anti-hero, I'd say
maybe anti-hero.
I'd say Wendy Richter would fit more into the white meat babyface.
I would agree with that.
Women.
Oh, we didn't mention Fabulous Moolah for heel women.
Yeah, but that might be a good thing.
Life knows. Life has recorded. Stone Cold.
We said it. We moved on. Yeah.
It might be easier to just knock out the All-American ones because there's less of those. Sergeant Slaughter is in there. Hacksaw.
Oh yeah, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, obviously.
Luger.
Dusty Rhodes goes in the All-American one. We mentioned John Cena. I wouldn't put some of these other ones on there. Like I wouldn't put Cody Rhodes down as like an All-American one because they don't do the foreign thing.
He's got the tattoo on. He's got the flag tattoo on his neck.
Yeah, but like if we're gonna do like that type of gimmick, he's not feuding with people being like, "You need to get out of my country." You know?
Well, because he tried that once and it didn't go well.
What about Kurt Angle for that?
He did win a gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
I didn't do the All-American list. Underdogs, we got Daniel Bryan.
Rey Mysterio.
Oh, Rey's a great one for that. That might be a Mount Rushmore underdog one.
Oh, I'd definitely say so for that. I'd say Sami Zayn.
Sammy's a great one.
Name that you probably won't hear very often, but might as well just mention him in here. I don't think he'll make the Mount Rushmore, but Mikey Whipwreck from ECW was like their standout like underdog.
That's true.
Babyface.
He's their enhancement.
Him and Spike Dudley were the two the two big not big obviously they were underdogs, but the ones that they were presenting that thing. You could say Tommy Dreamer maybe fits into that one as well if you just purely going with ECW ones. But trying to think of other ones that fit into the underdog category. A
lot of the underdogs end up moving away from underdog to the point that they don't kind of give that vibe anymore. But one that strikes me is Mick Foley.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Ricky Morton might be one. Also, might just put
we just put Rock and Roll in
Rock and Roll Express actually
under the underdog category. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe as white meat. Maybe as a tag team.
Yeah, they're more. Yeah, that's probably fair. They're probably more white meat babyfaces. Gargano, again, more recent thing.
Yeah.
Johnny Wrestling.
Oh, Darby Allin.
Yeah, I could see Darby Allin.
I wouldn't Mount Rushmore.
I wouldn't Mount Rushmore Gargano or Allen, but like as far as modern day ones, Gargano's a heel now, but you know what I mean.
You could look for like a woman one to fit into that. You could look at
Bailey could go under there too.
NXT Bailey, yeah. Candice LeRae, I'd say as well. If you're looking more, not from a WWE side of things, more of her indie work and stuff.
Yeah, her indie work, yes. Underdog women.
Actually, I'm looking at the white meat one for the women's side of things as well. Just from a Japanese side of things, I'd say Mayu Iwatani fits into like the white meat babyface one for essentially. She was basically what for Stardom what Hiroshi Tanahashi is for New Japan. So
I'd heard out of the list for our future supplemental discussion.
Yeah. I should definitely be high up for like the top women babyfaces in Japan history. Trying to think of
not too many underdogs popping in my brain right now. There are more people that fit under other categories, I think. Because once you get into the underdog thing, once you win, you pretty much stop being an underdog. So even like there's a groundswell of support for Dolph Ziggler for a little bit there. Well, eventually it turns into this guy's bitching and complaining too much. And then like, people go a little nuts about like supporting Zack Ryder. Well, he's not a Mount Rushmore underdog babyface of all time.
I do think you can put Kofi on there.
He won't make the
actual. Anything was big for a while.
I could see Kofi. I think ultimately Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio are at least 2 of the 4 for the underdog one. I think that I'd make the argument McFoley for a third one for that too.
You
didn't put Stone Cold as the anti-hero, and he's the anti-hero. I know you have him on the tweener list, but
yeah, we didn't really do the anti-hero list yet. But Steve Austin, it's on there. Shawn Michaels, I put down there. Triple H, I think. For the DX stuff, we got Becky Lynch on there. That is where Roddy Piper comes in again. I think
that is where Tetsuya Naito goes.
Yeah,
I would say.
Specifically going to qualify this as TNA, but TNA Samoa Joe.
And right now in AEW, he's filling that kind of role.
Actually, you fit probably AJ Styles as a white meat babyface then as well, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put the Shield down as a group for the Rebel Anti-Hero because the Shield was over as fuck. CM Punk is definitely in that.
I'd say Eddie Kingston fits into that sort of category as well. I'd say
people do like Eddie Kingston.
Top one for AEW.
All right, where's Hanger go on this list? White meat or Rebel?
Rebel Anti-Hero.
Yeah, I'd say nowadays one. It's kind of evolved from white meat into Rebel Anti-Hero.
Eddie Guerrero.
Oh yeah,
the Rebel.
Yeah,
not for anti-hero.
Yeah, and lied.
He cheated to win. Yeah, cheated to win. So.
I guess so. Yeah. For the record, I was thinking underdog because the one storyline everybody's brain flashes back to.
You know who we're
Eddie Guerrero could be an underdog one as well.
Gonna have to add under potentially underdog, but at least under flashy. Jeff Hardy.
Oh yeah, definitely Jeff.
Yeah, he's something.
Universally beloved. So.
This one's got Batista down as Rebel Anti-Hero. I don't quite see that.
That's kind of you're talking about a specific era.
I think I'd put Batista more so under like the Gentle Giant one, even. They wouldn't be able to go to, but like
while you're there, you can put Andre
the Gentle Giant, Big Show. Kali technically is a Gentle Giant. I wouldn't end up voting for him, but I'd put Mark Henry in there. I'd put Kane in there. Not Kane for being gentle, but like now you're a big monster, but you're the baby face.
That's Undertaker as well. Then
Undertaker, put him in there. I put Mark Henry in there for a little bit.
I'd say Bruno fits into that probably as well. Like he was a really big dude.
Could see the argument for throwing Dusty Rhodes into even that. Dusty Rhodes probably like across the board for all these.
I don't know if he's a giant, but like
big man.
He's big.
I mean, that kind of gets into the like Otis type of category where it's like the big teddy bear, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Strowman when he was babyface.
Braun Strowman. Because he was, he was a top babyface for a while there. And it was like, okay, big dude, fun, throw people around and do the train thing and all.
Bro.
I hated that story.
That's the kind of thing that you have to remind yourself actually happened. And that was a WrestleMania story.
So stupid. It didn't work out for Ryback, but like Ryback was filling that role for a while. He was over as all hell for being that.
Would Goldberg fit into that then?
Yeah, Goldberg would fit into that. Gentle Giant definitely would need to like have a split between like
we need to change that
versus
name.
like
I mean with the fighting champ you also like just have like the fighting champ kind of fits into that thing because like when I think fighting champ it's like well they're not always champion so they're just ass kickers really.
Well, the fighting champ I was thinking more so like
I'll defend every week type thing.
Yeah, like how Stephanie McCurr, for instance, did the whole like I'll fight two people in an event, and you know.
Oh yeah, if we talk about fighting champs, then I would posit Kazuchika Okada, babyface one, as a fighting champ. Bruno.
I could see. Yeah, Bruno makes sense for that. I could see Daniel Bryan being in that discussion again, just because it's like, you know, you get knocked down, you keep getting back up.
John Cena, obviously.
John Cena.
Like, want some, can't get some type thing. The Rock says just bring it as well, so he was probably like a fighting champ type of character.
Rock under Rebel Antihero too.
Yeah, I'd say.
Chris Jericho under there. Edge under there for Rebel Antihero.
Yeah.
I mean, Randy Orton at this point under Rebel Antihero.
I mean, fighting champ ones as well. Like you could go with like Bret Hart and Bob Backlund probably both into that as well.
Definitely do. Oh shit, that Rebel Antihero Diesel proportion there. Razor Ramon.
Right.
Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, I was going to say load on top of that one. So,
where does Warrior fit?
Flashy.
Yeah, I guess
maybe under that like whatever we renamed the Gentle Giant thing to, like whatever you know, kind of a big guy, but
a big man, big heart type thing.
Yeah. I'll add Ultimate Warrior down to there. I'll add him under Flashy. Flashy right now, for anybody that's trying to keep track of this without seeing our spreadsheet, I've got Randy Savage, because Macho Man is 100% under that. Jeff Hardy, The New Day, under the Flashy, because they're all like, you know, we're going to have unicorn horns, and we're going to have our cereal, and this kind of thing. Sting would be under the Flashy side with the face paint, and then when you count like the... another category actually would be like the kind of dark one where it's like it's kind of in the Rebel Antihero, but
brooding babyface.
Yeah, brooding baby. I'll just put that sounds awful. That would be like Crow, Sting, Undertaker.
Hangman actually could probably fit into that as well for a short period of time. He was doing that.
That's where you could throw Moxley in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you could throw Darby Allin in there.
And Cactus Jack. Or like Mankind.
Yeah, I think
when he was doing the
Mankind probably fits there.
Yeah, McFoley, I'll throw him in there.
Comedic relief.
McFoley's definitely under comedic relief.
Same with New Day as well.
New Day as well.
Yeah, New Day. I've got Santino. I've got R-Truth.
Orange Cassidy.
Oh, yeah. Great pick for that.
Goldust.
Yeah.
He's comedic relief.
Yeah, it's quite relief. I'd say Colt Cabana as well.
Yeah, he crossed different companies. Colt Cabana doing that.
Yeah. If you look at like Flashy, they bounce around other ones. Like going back to the Flashy one, say that's where Bianca Belair probably sits.
I would agree with that.
I could see Bianca in there. I could also see her as fighting champion.
Mm-hmm.
I added Rikishi to the Gentle Giant list.
Yeah, at one point he was like so super over.
Under Flashy, Doink the Clown.
Is that not just for comic relief?
Comic relief too.
Yeah. Flashy, I'm kind of thinking of like the moves as well type thing. So that's where I'd put your Will Ospreay.
Flashy, I think more so like colors for like their gear and like I put Rey Mysterio under Flashy for being like the masked thing. Ospreay, I think of him more as like fighting champion.
I think we need like one that's like. I think Will Ospreay probably actually fits more in white meat really as well as fighting champ, because he's just like a happy-go-lucky guy. It's just. It's like when you just go in the fighting champ, it's just a case of he definitely does fit into that, but he's just an overall kind of white meat babyface.
I can't help but notice that Flash Funk is missing from Flashy, as is Midian.
As is Brodus Clay, right?
I'd say Flashy you could go with Rob Van Dam should fit into Flashy.
Well, there's also I think actually Ospreay and Rob Van Dam and a couple other people could fit instead of fighting champion or white meat. It could be more like
High flyer.
I was gonna say like more like I can't think of a good way to phrase this, but like we respect their moves and their work rate. I guess work rate actually.
Yeah, work rate, guys.
So that would be like Ospreay.
Brett.
Yeah, Brett Shawn
Michaels, Bret Hart.
I'd say Ric Flair fits into
Daniel Bryan gets into that. Kurt Angle, Rob Van Dam, Seth Rollins goes in there for a lot of people.
Ricochet, babyface Ricochet.
I mean, he is bald, but I guess that is
Rey Mysterio gets in there a little bit too.
Ricky
Steamboat, Randy Savage.
WrestleMania 3.
So that's where you fit like an EO Sky as well, that type of person.
I can see EO in there, yeah.
You can put Ripley as a brooding babyface.
Oh, good one for that, yeah. Darker, kind of like
I'd say you could probably put China under a Gentle Giant one as well, or whatever we're gonna reframe that to.
Yeah, or did there for sure.
Big muscle, big heart.
Let's see, work rate. At one point, Chris Benoit was on that.
Yeah, but it's not now.
Not now.
Yeah.
But
AJ Styles would go on that list.
AJ Styles definitely on that list. Finn Balor, even to an extent. And
He's
you could
flashy.
do
He's
that under the flashy thing. It could be under the brooding one.
I'd say Kevin Owens also.
For the work rate?
Yeah, work rate one. I think that's where he gets most of his when he was babyface, where he got most of the crowd behind him was because he was such a great worker.
I'd also put him under Rebel Anti-Hero.
Oh yeah, definitely fits under that as well.
Especially once he calls out like, "Hey, you're not supposed to come out here and until I say your name."
Yeah, that was
somebody hits your music.
That was a great gimmick. Him just calling out the tropes.
I'd really fit him under Underdog as well. He just doesn't. He's like one of those people that just doesn't feel like or look like a wrestler.
He's the underdog in the sense that like Vince wouldn't normally go with him, you know.
Yeah, well, in the same way, like Foley's an underdog because Foley's still like a big dude, but like,
yeah,
you just don't expect it out of him.
Is it worth having a category of looks like a wrestler, where it's like people cheer because this dude's got muscles? Because that was a thing back in the day, more so than it is now. But like, people used to be just like, that guy is big. I like that he has muscles.
Isn't that kind of what we're doing where we're talking about the Ultimate Warrior and Ryback and Goldberg?
Yeah, kind of, to an extent. I guess it kind of just fits into that bit a little bit.
I think we've got them like kind of covered in there. I don't think we need to devote a potential category for it.
We didn't really talk too much about the women. The women. But most of them actually do kind of cross over the same. Like, I guess it's not under like brooding baby face or whatever, but like AJ Lee was like a top baby face, but she was also sometimes a heel. And then you got like girl next door types.
So under like White Meat ones, you probably would put Trish under that.
I love where your brain is today, Tony. Where you're just throwing out like some of the more specific era people. Like you're very in the 2010s today.
I don't know why.
Yeah. I'd say fighting champ. You could probably put Alundra Blaze into that.
Hey.
Maybe like a Manami Toyota as well.
We are thinking alike.
Obviously Bianca could fit into that. Becky could fit into that. Babyface Bailey could fit into that. I think of other ones that would necessarily kind of like women that would
Becky,
kind of defend the title quite often
for the fighting champion thing.
Yeah. There's also like some women that would just like defend the title fairly consistently.
Natty, if I was really pushing to get Natty on a list.
Gail Kim
fighting champion.
Under that girl next door type, because let's be honest, there is a portion of people that would be like, I'm cheering this girl because she just seems like the cute girl.
Kelly seems like the ultimate girl next door. Tori Wilson.
Stacey Keibler. Yeah.
I have Mickie James down there for that. I've got AJ Lee down for that, for being like, that's the girl next door type. If you were but I like comic books, and I like, I've got a different colored part of my hair, and like, like it appeals to a different one than the Tori Wilson types. For that matter, under the
more than girl next door,
under the like the flashy thing, like Lita.
Oh yeah,
potentially go underneath there.
Should be like Rebel anti-hero as well, kind of, in a little bit of a way. Definitely like the Rebel aesthetic to her.
Rhea Ripley would be under the Rebel thing too.
Yeah, put like Roxanne Perez under the girl next door one.
Yeah, she needs to turn babyface right now.
And obviously Bailey would fit under that as well from the NXT one.
Another like ultimate girl next door.
Bailey's just all over this fucking list for the babyfaces.
She was just like pure encapsulate babyface at that point.
Yeah, she's the best babyface that they've ever had, I think. Yeah.
That's why I always say I understand why they got rid of the gimmick, but like that was the best thing she had going for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like flashy, would you have Naomi as well? Maybe.
If she had a belt that glows, I think you have to.
You can see that, yeah. I feel bad that Natty's not on any of these, but like she really doesn't fully fit. Like she's not brooding.
Work rate, maybe.
Yeah, you can put her in work rate.
Yeah, could be. I mean, ultimately, when we do that on the supplemental list, we're probably not going to put Natty on. Much of that.
No, because it's just not that good.
Why'd you whisper that? Like...
Oh, I'm sorry. She's not that good. She's heavily overrated.
Not you.
Because it's like we might, I don't know, if we end up going like,
I love Natty.
Yeah, like
Natty knows what Natty is like.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that brings up a good one. Legacy babyface, where it's just like you've worked to a certain point of your career that we are not going to boo you.
Oh, okay, so. Well, it's not Natty then, because people still do. So, I'd say Ric Flair got to that point by the end of his career.
Ric Flair,
nowadays, but but towards in like the back end of his wrestling career, that he was just beloved by anybody. Even when they tried to make him a heel again, he was just beloved.
This is extreme recency bias, but I can confidently say, ain't nobody want to boo John Cena. Like, they're trying to turn Cena heel in his last year, and it's not working.
I'd say Randy Orton's a legacy babyface as well.
Absolutely.
Chris Jericho, even though he tries really hard to get booed, and he gets booed for people being like, dude, this isn't fucking cool anymore. At the end of the day, Chris Jericho is the legacy babyface. People do.
If Chris Jericho's political viewpoints did not become public matter, Chris Jericho would absolutely be on that list.
Mm-hmm. It's a total difference between Hogan and Jericho right now. And it's like Jericho's doing everything in his power to head towards that Hogan side. But for a while there, it was like, okay, Jericho is the top heel of the company and nobody's fucking booing him. I think at this point, you would probably put Asuka under legacy babyface. I don't think anybody's going to boo Asuka anymore.
No, probably not.
But I think we might have to wait to see what she does when she comes back.
I'd put Samoa Joe under that.
Samoa Joe is a great option for that. I think at this point Roman Reigns is.
Probably for the rest of his career. I could see it.
Oh, we've not put Cody Rhodes anywhere, these ones.
Well, because he doesn't want to put him under American. I mean, he is a fighting champion.
I would
He
put him
under American. He hasn't put him anywhere.
Underdog for Cody?
Undesirable
to undeniable?
Yeah, maybe. Like All American one as well. American Nightmare. That's
White Meat, maybe?
White Meat for sure.
Yeah,
for
definitely
Cody.
White Meat,
yeah. Girl next door?
He's dashing. That's like...
Yeah. Hey, for Brandy, he is.
Guy next door.
That should be weird if he lived next door to Brandy. That'd be weird. So.
Yeah. Any other comic relief ones stand out? Godfather.
Oh yeah,
love fucking Godfather.
what's
New Japan? Toriano.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Maki Ito for the women's side of things.
It's too early to put her on anything, but Harley Cameron is rapidly climbing up.
She just had a complete resurgence of her career by being this comic relief character for sure. If it would have continued on, Maria was getting into that territory for a lot, and she ended up changing up her career a little bit, and everything diverged from that. But for a little while there, for a couple of years, Maria Kanellis was like, she's comic relief, she's white meat, she's girl next door, she's underdog, like all across the board for a few years of like her being a top thing there. And of course they had plenty of other people like Candice Michelle, and you go back to like Ashima Sorrow and all that, where it's just like they're kind of bland characters. They're just there as like babyface. They don't stand out quite enough for me to put them in Mount Rushmore territory, but I figured I'd toss a little shout out to them. Since apparently I'm in the 2000s, 2010s for a lot of this in my brain right now.
Would you put the Bella Twins into the legacy?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would.
I could see that. Mostly the legacy ones, I don't think we'll factor into the Mount Rushmore overall master list, but I figured it'd be worth talking about legacy things like that. Any other flashy ones that we can think of?
What, for men, women?
Yeah, men or women. Yeah. Yeah, we got like Lita, New Day, Sting, Savage, Hardys, Mysterio.
Trying to think. Kenny Omega. I know he's obviously like he goes to work rate as well, but he's super flashy as well.
It might be too early to say, but I think he might be legacy as well.
I think he probably would end up being legacy. Yeah. I think obviously Shawn Michaels is in Legacy. Forgot to mention that. People definitely reached a point where they were just like, I'm not booing Shawn. Undertaker, Legacy. He never was able to turn heel again.
I mean, he give him a few more years in the podcast, and maybe that will change.
Yeah.
He reached that point.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'm trying to think of any other ones that like classes like super flashy as babyfaces. Actually, I'm trying to think of another potential category or subcategory that we could do. Is I don't know how you would term this, but people that kind of put their body on the line, like not necessarily just underdogs, but people that will just throw themselves through tables, chairs, like put their bodies through unbelievable amounts of punishment, and that's how they get the respect of the fans.
Oh my god!
Sacrificial lambs.
Yeah, I mean that's where you'd put Foley in there, obviously.
That's your Foley. That's your Darby. That's your Hardy. That's your. We haven't talked about him yet. R.I.P. Sabu. Yeah.
Yeah, Sabu would go. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about with Sabu going in there. Tommy Dreamer.
I have that down as sacrificial lamb / thank you. Because it'll be the whole thank you for your sacrifice,
Yeah. Or you could put Sandman potentially in there as well. And like Eddie Kingston definitely would go in that.
ECW in general was just like, thank you for that. Foley, Hardy, Allen.
I think also, like, just thinking about like the women's side of things, we've not mentioned the best, not just women's babyface, but the best babyface in wrestling today. Willow Nightingale needs to go in places on this list.
Yeah.
She'd be white meat.
She's white meat. Like, she's girl next door.
White meat, girl next door. I agree with that.
She's not quite comic relief because she's not really like funny, but she's got that bubbly personality.
She's a bubbly babyface.
Yeah, she'd go on to Fighting Champ as well if they were doing that stuff. She's a work rate one as well because she has some of the best matches.
Willow's great. So Willow took over the Bayley spot of like top babyface in women. I think weird that Timeless Toni Storm is like. That's the woman in AEW history at this point, and I wouldn't flashy, know. Though. I wouldn't know where to put her other than flashy because like she's not an underdog. She's comic relief in some ways, but then she's also kind of not. And like, she's got some of the categories of like the work rate thing and stuff. A lot of people under work rate are just like they're just good wrestlers and. It's hard to kind of boo somebody that you just like watching in the ring. And then that goes with tag teams, that goes with, across the board. Like, I'm never going to find myself, I think, booing DIY. Because to me, it's just like, I fucking like those guys. Those guys are great in the ring. And then, Motor City Machine Guns is like another tag team that's just like, all right, flip around, do fun stuff. Love watching that. Yay. Yeah. Do we have Styles on the work rate? Well, yeah, okay, we do. Yeah, definitely Styles get that for it.
With Flashy, would you also maybe put Swerve in there as well? Or is it kind of like the Rebel
Anti-Hero, maybe?
Yeah.
Because he's got the cool vibe to him. And Flashy could be cool. I mean, that is for certain people. But like, where does LA Knight go? Rebel Anti-Hero?
I'd say Flashy, maybe more. So.
Yeah, he's probably a little flashy.
Don't you mean yeah?
I guess I do mean yeah.
Is he under brooding?
I don't say necessarily need to put Sacrificial Lamb. Or the thank you one. I don't know if you necessarily have to put him on there, but that's where Ishii would go. Tomohiro Ishii. Just the rest of the equivalent of the move bide.
It's arguable that due to the state of their knees, you could put both Tanahashi and Naito. I mean, they've definitely given away a lot of the
I basically can't see anymore for that reason.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just because they wrestle a lot more than do the more physical matches. Although they do, obviously, New Japan has its own physical style, so you would do that anyway. But yeah.
By the way, if we're going to talk about LA Knight, as much as I don't think I'd put him on a Mount Rushmore or anything, but I will say Jey Uso, he's somewhere. People love Yeet. I don't get it.
He's the white meat babyface, really.
Flashy.
They love Yeet Man Jones, man. I don't know what it is.
That entrance, for some fucking reason, it's just people are just like, do it again, do it again, do it again. We want to raise our hands up and just say yeet, 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 yeet over and over again.
Yeah. But
how did we not even talk about Gunther under any of the heels?
I know, obviously Monster heel, foreign heel, that kind of
work rate heel. He's there. He's Gunther. He's great.
Yeah, but I was thinking for just one other. I know we're trying to probably wrap it up soon, but if we're going for one more subcategory, because we have stooges and corporate authority figures for heels, but we could do babyface, good guy authority figures as well.
I would have to put
the kind of the just ones,
franchise player,
No, he's talking babyface authority, like Mick Foley,
I was thinking
Teddy Long,
Nick Aldis that's doing it now, that kind of,
hold down the fort and
kind of they call it down the middle type authority figure,
like sheriff kind of.
Yeah. And in that same vein, Steve Austin.
So it's like
Mick
Teddy
Foley.
Long, Steve Austin, Mick Foley.
Yeah, Nick Aldis.
Adam
Regal
Pearce.
in NXT, man. That was some good shit.
Yeah.
William Regal's in there. Shawn Michaels is in there now for stepping in and being like, fuck you, Eddie Thorpe.
I'd say, again, a name that probably wouldn't get mentioned most other places is Jack Tunney.
Yeah, Jack Tunney, man. President Jack Tunney. Gorilla Monsoon.
Absolutely.
We should have done a babyface and heel commentators one as well, really.
We really should. Let's see. Heel commentators. So that one we could probably just knock out real quick. So it's like Jerry Lawler, Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura.
I like JBL quite a bit.
Michael Cole was a heel commentator for a very long time.
Yeah, Michael Cole.
Michael Cole was fun as all hell with the. But then again, it's like I cheered Michael Cole as a heel.
The gong,
yeah, that was amazing.
And then for babyface,
you put Nigel McGuinness in there as well.
Nigel's in there.
Very fun for that. Yeah, we'll come back around to that for our supplemental one.
We can do it later on, yeah. But and if babyfaces commentators, you could say obviously Jim Ross.
Yeah, Jim Ross 100%
JR.
there. Gorilla Monsoon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you stop that?
You won't hear
Tony Schiavone.
I can see Schiavone being there because he was always standing up for against the NWO and everything.
You don't get to mention the name Lance Russell on any other podcast, but I'm gonna say Memphis commentator Lance Russell.
Whoever that is.
Absolutely.
This is a weird thing to put out there, but babyface commentators, Vince McMahon.
It doesn't get any more ridiculously babyface than late
Don't you
80s
love the things that are happening right now?
Hey, got him. No, that was only two.
Yeah. Well, would you look at that? Oh, it's amazing. We all love the good people here. Like that kind of. For that matter, we didn't even do a separate category for. I'm gonna add this before I forget about it. Heel managers separate from when we do the supplemental thing.
Also heel tag teams as well as as well as heel factions.
Because we got to talk about Midnight Express and
I'd say Young Bucks as well. Yeah.
Let's put question marks down for some of those.
Yeah, I mean,
because again, with supplemental lists that we're gonna do, like heel managers,
fun discussion about the world of wrestling after a while.
this is going to be on the cornerstone tag on the website for sure. Because this is an all timer type of Mount Rushmore for us. I mean, by the end of this, when we do part 2 of this, we're already on a 2-hour discussion on this one. If we do the part 2 one, we're gonna end up having like 40 fucking lists of the Mount Rushmore. What other babyface commentators did we have? We had JR, Girl Monsoon, Vince, Tony Schiavone,
Mike Tenay.
Yeah, Mike Tenay, I'd say. And
I put Michael Cole in there now.
Excalibur.
Yeah, he probably fits there. Not Excalibur. I kind of he is more lead toward babyface. So I kind of think that like the main play-by-play guy, it's often difficult to do it. Obviously, Jim Ross fits into it, but there was I was thinking of a heel one of Don Callis.
Me and Gene, by the way, like
not on commentary, but like a major babyface for sure.
Like he did commentate over some of those like MTV shows. Like he was the voice of that rock and wrestling era.
I'd say put like if you're obviously not a commentator, but I'd say Renee Paquette or Renee Young would also fit into.
Renee Young was a commentator. Well. Renee Young was going to Saudi before they were letting the other women go to Saudi. So kudos to Renee.
Put them down under the commentator thing for separate like.
They're one of those like they're always babyfaces. It's one of those backstage interviewers or people of that ilk that if a heel was to beat them up or like to push them over or something like that, then that would get a huge heel reaction.
Yeah. For a little while there, Caleb Braxton was getting into that. Charlie was getting into that a little bit. Kathy's kind of into that now, but not as much as like me, Gene, or Renee. And nobody's going to be like, man, you picked on Kevin Kelly.
And they liked it when they picked on Kevin Kelly and Jonathan Coachman, yeah.
Not anymore. Like
tag team, faction baby face types.
Tag team
baby factions. I'd say tag teams. You're looking at like Rock and Roll Express.
Rock and Roll Express. You're looking at Legion of Doom or Road Warriors.
Yeah. Hardy Boys.
Hardy Boys. Yeah. Under faction, I'm going to put Shield.
Mm-hmm.
They reached that point for sure.
DX was way more babyface than heel.
I'd say the Elite were more babyface than heels.
I would agree with that.
Especially towards like with the development of AEW, I'd say.
Not maybe for the full thing, but Blackpool Combat Club for at least for AEW is top babyface faction.
They're weird. They went from babyface and heel all the time. Really, they're kind of more tweeners almost. I'd say.
There's not as many babyface factions just because things are the way
the New Day.
New Day.
By the nature of
100%. Well, New Day tag team or faction, depending on that. I'll put them on both. But New Day definitely gets in there.
Based on the nature of factions, they're not really babyface. Like you're not out here advocating for like the union.
Most babyface teams tend to almost more so just be like, these people work together because they're all good people. Not like, we're a group that sticks together and we're like, a group of 4 people that are, hey, we're a babyface faction.
I'd say maybe Chaos from New Japan to fit into babyface factions. Same with like Stars from Stardom as well. Kind of like the main babyface factions.
It's Chaos all caps.
Yeah.
Maybe NWO Wolfpack babyface faction.
And their themes, Wolfpack is here causing mass destruction, right? Is that how it sounds?
I'd say at one point, like LIJ was also like the biggest babyface faction in New Japan for a while as well.
DIY is a great babyface tag team. Mega Powers?
I'd say Mega Powers.
I don't think that's arguable.
Yeah. I'd say Golden Lovers as well. Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi.
Machine Guns, Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah, definitely. Beer Money, I'd say, probably. I think
Beer Money's
they
a
were
fun
definitely
tag.
more often as a babyface than as a heel act.
It would always show people's age if people are like, RK Bro. And it's like, yeah, they were fun for 2 years. But like,
yeah, like
you know,
oh, you're 12, got it. Like it's like
like I wouldn't Mount Rushmore them, but like too cool.
right. British Bulldogs, no one's talking about that, but they're baby faces.
I mean, I mentioned Owen Hart in any of this. In either the heel or babyface one.
He's definitely a good weasel.
Heart Foundation under
Heel
faction
as well.
for heels. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say like British Bulldogs are a great heel team. Great babyface team.
Like the Usos when they were like just the Usos.
Yeah, face painted Usos.
I want them to bring back the Civital just once. Just do that on like a fun thing. Von Erichs.
Von Erichs
yeah, definitely is a faction,
on the heel side as well.
Oh yeah, Freebirds on the heel side.
Probably Heart Foundation. Like the 2-man Heart Foundation for babyface tag teams or heel tag teams.
Oh, you're talking about Hart and
no, Heart Foundation, not Heart Foundation.
yeah.
I wish that would have amounted to more. A lot of that era for me can be summed up in that. I wish that era was more.
If you condense 11 years into like 3 and you'd be like, that was a great 3 years. And you just take the good and leave the bad, again, we'll come back around to settling on like, all right, what is the Mount Rushmore of babyface factions and Mount Rushmore of face tag teams and stuff, but we are at 2 hours and 11 minutes, so let's try to figure out men and women babyface Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Bailey's 100% under the women. I think Becky Lynch at this point has reached top Mount Rushmore babyface women. I don't know who I would necessarily go with, like 3 and 4.
So I don't know whether you go with. I'd say China.
I could see an argument for that. I could definitely see an argument for that. I think it's too early for Willow, but I think she could get there.
Yeah,
I think you could say Trish.
And Trish at one point was definitely most over women in WWE, but I'm wondering, like, there's other ones like
Toyota. You could definitely make an argument for.
Yeah, I'd make an argument for her for like being the top babyface in Japan or top women's babyface in Japan at the very least at different times. I'd say
never booed, at least in the initial WWF run, Miss Elizabeth. Not saying you need to Mount Rushmore her.
Yeah, Wendy Richter was like in many ways as big a star as Hogan was during the 80s for a brief period of time.
Potentially put Mickey in the discussion.
You do? Yeah, I think Rhea probably could be in discussion as well. Maybe it's too soon
Rhea
again,
should be in discussion by this point.
I think Bianca at this point already.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, might as well put Willow Nightingale in there. Like, she won't be on it yet, but she'll be a future contender, almost certainly.
Browsing through the list right now to see if there's anybody else on the women's side.
I'd say as well. I think Lita was kind of like when Trish was heel, she was the antithesis of that.
Yeah. And she was like, it's the Betty and Veronica thing. You got the Lita and Trish. So I'm the punk girl, and
okay. Okay.
And I also think like it's weird to say, but I also think like again, probably not like the current Mount Rushmore, but like I think Toni Storm is on the same sort of trajectory as Willow Nightingale is.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
She's gonna go down as one of the top women of all time.
I mean, I think she's made it very clear in her promos that she's gonna go down at some point.
You see people making a fuss over the Mariah May picture. She's got a beanie that says, "Who ate all the pussy?"
clearly Tony Storm did. I mean, she's been very open about that.
But I hope it's not like...
This is a mystery I want to get to the bottom of.
Yeah. I hope it's not Mina and Mariah in the Fatal 4-Way on Dynamite this week. It'd be like a fucking human centipede.
It is Mina. It's someone else.
Nobody Mina.
Then two Minas.
There you go. That's our Tamina discussion in this podcast.
Yeah. In terms of like, if we're actually going to try and nail down
under potential for
probably Gail
Kim. Babyface. Alundra Blaze.
Alundra Blaze, yeah.
So out of that, I mean, that is
I think that's probably a solid
pretty damn good group of like 15. I'd go Bayley, I'd go Becky, and then out of the other ones, it is hard to be like, okay, let's just put Bianca on there. Like, let's just put Rhea on there. But damn, are they not making a case for it already?
Think there's a fucking argument that Rhea's one of the most over women's wrestlers of all time at this point.
Like, I'd put Rhea over China at this point.
I'd put Rhea over most women on this list.
Mm-hmm. And it's, I kind of all go straight to Bianca again, too, because it's like, Bianca not only fulfills a lot of the same, like, she's the fighting champion, she's the white meat babyface, she's flashy, she's the work rate side of it, but she's also the inspirational, I'm going to look up to her because I want to see a champion that looks like me type. And that's a big part of babyface territory. Like, a lot of people get into the, I'm a big fan of say Rey Mysterio because he represents my culture, or I am as a kid completely sucked into, I don't know, take your pick when it comes to a lot of these people, like hey, that guy's a bigger guy. And that made me feel better about myself because he's a bigger guy and he could be champion. And I was always overweight. You know what I mean? Like, and I think Bianca, like, she's got a lot of history already for her where it's like, let's have the girls come out for her WrestleMania entrance and let's have people really kind of like
rally around her.
Yeah, rally. It's a good word to use for that. Rallying around her for that on top of all the other things that she's great for. I'd put her down.
The crazy thing is that 4 that you have right there, Bayley, Becky, Bianca, and Rhea,
are all still wrestling.
way too modern, but also like there's an argument to be made that could be it. I would probably throw in, and Alundra Blaze, I'd probably throw in maybe a Toyota to get some international flair in there. Maybe Trish for being the anchor of that era. But I'm definitely thinking Rhea has to be a lock. Becky has to be a lock. For me, at least.
Not necessarily Bayley and Bianca.
I don't know, it's really tough because Bianca, like you just laid it all out, is really good. Maybe, but Bayley, it's a tough pick.
Yeah, it is slightly worrying that like they're all contained in a very small window of time.
Yeah, that's part of my issue with it too.
Like, I would probably lean towards Trish over Bianca, just because like she was I'd argue that her and China were the 2 biggest female stars of the Attitude Era. And that's like a big period in WWE's history, and so like almost you could make the argument between her, China, and Lita like were at different times in that period like the biggest women's wrestling star in the world, or like at least the most over person there. So I don't know whether like Bianca's like almost always been a babyface outside of NXT.
She's
Yeah.
being referred to as the John Cena now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I was on that train years ago too, so I feel like she could be on there. I think Bailey has to take a back seat, unfortunately, because I just think
I mean,
like there
there is an argument to be made that she spent more of her WWE career as a heel than she has a babyface,
at this point maybe, yeah.
or at least a very similar amount of time. And that
She
whole
represents to me white meat and underdog as like she would be the two
So she did
best
the hugger.
representatives of that.
She did the hugger for like 5 years, and it's been about 5 years since she dropped it. So they actually don't like. She's probably been out of that character for longer now, hasn't she?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
As I like, there is it's probably a bit too difficult to go with like there's. So you probably could just put like Trish, China, and Lita on like the next line down, probably alongside like Toyota, and it would be fine. And you could always just mix and match those ones.
We can obviously come back to this with our supplemental list that we are going to eventually do.
I mean, we've got like 15 people there. If we wanted to add a 16th into it to then have like 4, and eventually I'd probably say just put Mayu Iwatani in that one as well. But she was like the ace of the biggest women's wrestling promotion in the world right now. So
we're gonna in the future we're gonna have 4 Mount Rushmores for the women side of it. Rounding out the podcast for this episode, at least, the men's Mount Rushmore babyfaces.
John Cena. Is anyone going to argue that? I don't think so.
I'm not gonna argue against John Cena being in there. Yeah.
I'd say
I think Stone Cold Steve Austin goes in there as that rebel babyface because as much as he's the tweener in a lot of ways, that motherfucker was a babyface.
He was the most over and most, marketing, making money champion for that company ever. That was a poorly formed sentence. Hogan's probably on there, but I just don't know.
I'll go so far as to say, as much as I would hate to not put him on the list, Shawn Michaels does not make the Mount Rushmore of babyfaces.
No, not at all.
I think that his rebel side is overtaken by Stone Cold. And then I think the work rate side of Shawn Michaels, you can argue a lot of people are just on the same kind of brand as that when it comes to like, is that where you throw work rate under Daniel Bryan? Is that where you throw Bret Hart? Is that where you throw, something like a Rey Mysterio? Or is he more under the underdog? Is Daniel Bryan more on the underdog? I think I'm just writing down a whole list of like the ones that are really standing out to me. But like Sting is a potential on this list. Savage, Cody Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, Steamboat, San Martino. I wouldn't put The Rock on there because I think that gets overtaken by Stone Cold too. Undertaker. Who was the one you said? Sorry,
Andre, I think, would be potentially one. I'd say Hiroshi Tanahashi for New Japan is probably their biggest one. Well, actually, 2. You could either have Hiroshi Tanahashi or you could potentially have Antonio Inoki as well. That we haven't mentioned, but like was the top star of New Japan for a long time. Trying to think of Daniel Bryan.
At least on the list that I'm working with right now, I've got was it 19 people? Cena, Austin, Hogan, San Martino, Savage, Michaels, Bret Hart, Taker, Bryan, Mysterio, Foley, Sting, Rhodes, Steamboat, Andre. I don't think Punk necessarily, but I put him down in there. Tanahashi, you said, Inoki. I think that's mostly the group that I'd be working with, because even somebody that's like a big, I don't know, maybe New Day could be in there too, but I don't think I'd Mount Rushmore them over some of the other people. Oh, Jeff Hardy, I think, is within discussion for that. That'd probably be one of the other ones that round out like a top 20 or so.
Yeah.
Which again, of course, when we do the supplemental things, we might end up doing a mix of like, okay, if this is like master list of you got to throw the women in with the men instead of just having a men and women separate, we might come back to that discussion a little bit. But
just real quick, we joke around a lot, but like, this is the reason why I feel like this podcast should be more supported.
Yep, and I didn't even do the plugs yet, but if you love these types of things,
2.5 hours of this, you should support us more. Just
2.5 hours of this, plus the promise that in the future we're going to come back and do even more. And this was a suggestion from Frankie, who is on the Dark Cast tier, and the Pick Your Poison tier is the one to very specifically do that. But that's why I always say too that if you have your suggestions, drop them in the comments or send them on Discord or send an email or something, because then we got a week like this where we didn't have anything that we had necessarily planned, and even though Frankie wasn't on the Pick Your Poison tier, being on the Darkcast tier, it was like, all right, well, you know what, let's do that as a Pick Your Poison kind of, and that's the best way to support us. Be on YouTube for the channel membership, go to Patreon, subscribe on those things, join those, click on the follows and all those things there too. Click the thanks button, toss a little spare change your way. If you're like, hey, these guys did a big cornerstone episode here, here's $5. It's the equivalent of like a super chat or something. That stuff actually does go a long way, so keep that in mind. Now also Redbubble and TeePublic for your merchandise if you want to pick that up. Forgot to mention that midway through this podcast, like I was planning on, because we just got too into the discussion. So thank you for reminding me, Rob. Cena and Austin, I feel, are locks. The other two, I think there's a debate for a lot of types. Part of me is saying, just looking at this list, Rey Mysterio and Daniel Bryan. And part of me is saying they cover the same bases, and I would go Rey over Daniel Bryan, and then have a discussion of work rate, which then Daniel Bryan comes back in, but then that brings up Brett and Shawn. But then you could also say about the flashy thing. Flashy, underdog, work rate, white meat, rebel anti-hero. That's more than 4 categories, but those are the main ones that I think. And I think I'd make the argument Rey covers underdog and flashy. Austin has brooding to an extent and rebel. And I'd even argue to a certain extent comic relief for Stone Cold, because Stone Cold was fucking funny. And he kind of has the sheriff thing going on too. And he's legacy. Cena, Austin, Mysterio, and then I kind of default to work rate, and then I go, okay, is it Brett? Is it Shawn? Is it Bryan?
See, like I think that I don't think Bryan, Mysterio, Hart, or Michaels are kind of big enough baby faces in just terms of popularity at the time. In the same way the Heels one, I just don't think that at any point in time those guys were the biggest baby faces in professional wrestling. Like, you could potentially argue Brett out of those ones, but like even he would probably, like, if
I'd argue Brett over Shawn, probably. Yeah.
Oh, it was definitely Brett over Shawn. I don't think Shawn has any argument of going into this one. I think if you're going at people that at one point were like either the biggest baby faces, and then also one thing is, it's like, one thing that I would push over a lot of them as well is that you want someone who is basically like a career baby face as well. Like Mysterio fits into that thing because he has pretty much never been a heel, only with like the Filthy Animals thing. We don't talk about that because he wasn't wearing a mask and no one wants to remember that time when he wasn't wearing a mask. But I'd say like a career babyface that I would definitely put into there, and someone that I think that's fits into like legacy. It's is white meat stuff, but like could do the fighting champion stuff. Is like flashy. Does have like the as a bit like the anti-dog, anti-hero thing as well. But like I think Sting needs to be
that's a big argument for Sting.
Because I think it's like Sting is a career babyface pretty much. The only time they turned him heel, that it was retconned almost immediately because it just went so badly. So I think that's
a solid pick because that can kind of cover a little bit of Savage, a little bit of Hogan, a little bit of quite a bit.
Yeah,
that could be. I could see an argument for that to be the fourth.
And then like when you go to the other ones, I just think like there's two people in this list that stand out above all else just because of how big of an impact they had as babyfaces, and that's Hogan and Sammartino.
Yep.
And then I think you're literally just choosing between those two to fill the other void, I think.
And I hate to say it, but like again, I think you gotta go Hogan.
All the other ones they feel like other criteria, but at the end of the day, none of these other ones we got listed, apart from maybe a couple in their own promotions, would never be considered like the best babyface of all time. Really, like you wouldn't never say like a Jeff Hardy or even like a Rey Mysterio even is like the best babyface of all time.
Again, I think if you come back to this discussion and then it's younger people doing it, I think Hardy gets on the babyface thing. I think Orton gets on the heel thing. I think a lot of that does happen if you're talking about people who aren't trying to discuss beyond the modern era. But I think at this point, 40 years ago, Hogan is the guy they used to launch Mania. Mania is still going today. Hogan was shot in the arm for WCW. Like Bruno was a great territory babyface. And he'd be my pick if we had to have a territorial representative. But Hogan really did make this thing global in a lot of ways.
So right now we're hovering Cena, Austin, Mysterio, Sting, Hogan, Sammartino. Probably not any of the other ones would be as much in the top four. We kind of narrowed it down to a top six. Because, I wouldn't pick Jeff Hardy into there. And I think that if you have Hogan in there and you have Sting in there, you don't put Savage in there. And, somebody like a Punk, you don't put in there because of Austin, so on and so forth. Dusty Rhodes is a big pick for certain people, but, I don't think... The fact that he didn't get that big push in WWE, I think hinders that. I think, at the very least, I think we all would lock in Austin. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess let's do our individuals.
Callum, would you lock in Cena?
I mean, I'd say so. I think that just it's the Make-A-Wish stuff as well, on top of just being having such a longevity thing as well. It's like he was a babyface in pretty much every aspect of his life at that point. So,
and then I'd say the next one.
And they turned him heel, and it absolutely sucks. So of course, he should be. He's one of the best babyfaces of all time because he just doesn't work as a heel.
And then I'm saying Sting. I think over.
I definitely would put Sting over any of the remaining guys. I think Sting's a career babyface.
So we got 2 votes for Sting, at least. And I could endorse that too. 3 votes for Austin, 3 votes for Cena.
And then it comes down to Mysterio, Hogan, or Sammartino. And I gotta go Hogan.
See, I don't really want to put Hogan, just because
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But there's another reason why I wouldn't put Hogan, other than the fact that he's just a piece of shit.
Is it that his heel run was good?
Yeah, it's the fact that he's also arguably one of the best heels of all time.
Right.
I can live with that.
So that's where I kind of go, maybe Cena fills that for Hogan.
So in which case I would go Bruno, because I think Bruno
I'd go Bruno
is
too over Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, is the kind of the inaugural babyface of the biggest promotion in the world. So like, and yeah, it fits into that territory thing. So I'd definitely go Bruno over Hulk.
The reason I wouldn't go Rey, just to clarify, is because as much of a babyface as he is, he's not like a sustained top guy. He's not a babyface to the point where after 2006 he was on every main event of everything ever, like a Cena, like a, Austin once he got to that level, like a Sting once he got to that level.
So we got 3 for Austin, 3 for Cena, basically 3 for Sting, and you guys are both going to go Bruno?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that de facto moves Hogan down.
Yeah, and I'm good with not putting Hogan on the list.
I wouldn't necessarily go Bruno, but I see the argument for Bruno, and it's 2-1, so like Bruno does make sense. And then for the future discussion, Rey Mysterio and Hulk Hogan are pretty much effectively the start of our B tier, which we then will come back around and talk about our B tier stuff when we get into that. Yeah, that's a discussion.
That was like there's not much else to say. That was a great discussion. I'm gonna make a huge argument for Steamboat to be at the top of that B tier too, but we'll get there in the Darkcast tier. Go subscribe to it. This was fun.
I don't know when we're gonna do that discussion. It might be tomorrow, for all we know. Kind of depends on what our schedules are. I'm open to do it tomorrow, and I don't know if you guys are, but it'll probably be on the Darkcast, because I think that by the time we get around to our next blank week, that's going to be when we have to sort of figure out like what to cram in, like a Money in the Bank thing. So more than likely a Darkcast. And of course, the way that you get onto the Darkcast tier is to subscribe to the Darkcast tier on Patreon or on the YouTube channel membership, whichever one it is. So keep that in mind. Share your support. Make sure that you are following all the different things we have under the link tree at amangotree.com for all of my stuff at the very least. And that's across the board for social media stuff. That's on like Letterboxd things. And of course, Patreon link is on there too and all that. So if you want to follow my stuff, a lot of it's at Tony Mango. A lot of it's, of course, Fanboys Anonymous and Smark at Moment. But follow what Rob and Callum are up to too.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Fleece and check out my work on Fightful.com. And check out what Callum has going on.
So you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Weekmost14. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday over on smarkoutmoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And you can also check out the Fantasy League, which is also now up and running after Backlash was the first point scoring event of the year. And with Rob winning the predictions contest, he gets a little bit of a leg up now, with Obafemi getting some additional points moving forward and getting an additional trade for the season. So yeah, just follow all the stuff along there at www.fantasyleague.com or find it through Smark Out Moment and see how the season progresses.
Now, as we said, join us for the Darkcast coming up whenever we get a chance to do that. But at least for this first half of this discussion or whatever, and the general sense, I mean, we did eventually narrow it down to our top. This is part 1A or part 1 or part A, whatever it might be, of the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling heels and faces of all time, at least as far as May 2025. Who knows if anything changes in the future for that. Adios for now, everybody. Leave your comments below. Tell us what you think. Stay tuned for that Darkcast. Stay tuned for the hot tags and stay tuned for all the pay-per-view stuff coming up next week. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.